Chapter 2607. Yiji was suddenly pulled behind him. When she realized what was happening, she had already slammed into the man's chest. Suddenly she felt a hard wall-like body behind her. Yiji was stunned. She instinctively opened her eyes. She looked up and saw the side profile of a man wearing a ghost mask. Yuan Xing. Why are you here? Yiji looked at the man in the ghost mask. Her red lips moved slightly and she frowned in surprise. After all, ever since Yuan Xing took her away and sent her back to Qin Yuru's house and she entered the school, Yuan Xing had not appeared for a long time. Why did he appear today? He's been following you. Yun Jian looked at Yuan Xing, who was wearing a ghost mask. Her lips curved into a red arc as she chuckled. Finally Yun Jian paused. She narrowed her eyes and stared at Yuan Xing. She said in a firm tone, "You're Xing Feng's man." Yuan Xing was a follower of deity's continent's creator, Xing Feng. Yiji did not understand anything. She blinked her eyes and crawled out from Yuan Xing's chest. At this moment Yuan Xing patted Yiji's head. Under the mask, his face was expressionless and his lips moved slightly. "Go to class," Yuan Xing said to Yiji. "Oh." Yiji did not get a reply from Yuan Xing. She scratched the part of her head that was touched by Yuan Xing and walked to the classroom in confusion. "You like her?" As soon as Yiji left, Yun Jian looked at Yuan Xing with a beautiful and flirtatious smile. Yuan Xing's eyes followed Yiji until she disappeared in front of him. His lips under the mask twitched slightly. He looked away and replied to Yun Jian, "I don't hate her. That was liking her." Yun Jian did not say much, merely smiling with her lips pressed together. Back to the topic at hand, Yun Jian's smirk faded abruptly. She turned around and walked to a thick tree, taking 2 steps forward before stopping. Yun Jian, who was holding the letter from Si Chu, turned sideways and looked at Yuan Xing. She could not help retorting. "If my guess is correct, as the creator of the gods' continent, Xing Feng has the ability to foresee the future." Yun Jian's words made Yuan Xing's feet move. His eyes darkened. There was silence all around. Silence. It was so quiet that even the sound of breathing could be heard. It was so long that the school bell was about to ring. "Yes." A nod suddenly sounded from Yuan Lin's mouth. When Si Yi was born on Earth, Yuan Xing gave this letter to Si Chu. He told Si Chu that there would be a day when the cold pavilion would be taken away by a young girl. He also told Si Chu to give this letter to Yun Jian on that day. This meant that either Yuan Xing or Xing Feng had the ability to foresee the future. There was no doubt that the person who had this ability was Xing Feng. "So now it's time to tell me what you know," Yun Jian said as she waved the letter between her index and middle fingers. Yuan Xing took 2 steps to the side after being seen through. He turned around and looked at Yiji in the teaching building. "Since you already know, I won't hide it from you." Yuan Xing paused and suddenly grinned. Just as Yun Jian stared at him, Yuan Xing reached out and took off his ghost mask from behind. His slender fingers gently removed his mask. The face under the mask was extremely handsome. There was a hint of delicacy in his handsomeness. This was not what Yun Jian noticed. Yun Jian's focus was on. This face was very similar to Shui Ying's. "You are?" Yun Jian frowned. Yuan Xing raised his eyes and looked at Yun Jian. When Yun Jian frowned, he immediately said, "Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Yuan Xing. My father is Shui Ying. My mother is Si Luo. As for Xing Feng, he is the child of you and your husband, Si Chu. We are from the future world." Chapter 2608. We came from the future world. The words made Yun Jian's expression change in surprise. Yes, she had guessed Yuan Xing's identity and Xing Feng's identity. She was even more certain that Xing Feng had the ability to predict the future. But she never expected Yuan Xing was Shui Ying and Si Luo's child. And Xing Feng was. Yun Jian squeezed the envelope in her hand, her face turning pale. The wind blew past Yun Jian. The warm spring wind blew past Yun Jian's ponytail that reached her waist. Her messy hair fluttered in the wind, looking beautiful. But if one looked closer, one could see that Yun Jian had written 2 words on the white envelope in her hand with a black pen. "Save me." The words Xing Feng were inscribed on the letter. It was obvious that Xing Feng had been captured by the mysterious person. "I still have something I don't understand." Yun Jian squeezed the envelope in her hand and looked up at Yuan Xing. "Please tell me," Yuan Xing said. Yuan Xing was still very polite to Yun Jian. Because to Yuan Xing, Xing Feng was his master. Just like how Shui Ying worked for Si. In a sense, as Xing Feng's mother, Yun Jian was half his master. "Will we encounter any mishaps in the future?" Yun Jian asked. When she asked this question, she did not hesitate at all. Yuan Xing lowered his head and looked at the leaves on the ground. 2 seconds later, Yuan Xing suddenly looked up and told Yun Jian the truth without hesitation. Yes. In the future you, your husband, my parents, Uncle Lin Wei, Auntie Yiling and everyone else. They're all dead. They were plotted against by the mysterious person and forced to perish together with him. In the end, only Xing Feng and I were left. So in order to change the situation, Si Luan, who was Ce and Yun Jian's child, changed his name to Xing Feng and used all his spiritual power to distort time and space to come to the gods' continent that didn't exist at that time. According to the normal course of history, the deities' continent would also appear. The king of the deities' continent would also exist. The Lord God, the Master God, and the Master God's father would all exist. However, Xing Feng had come to the gods' continent, where everything had yet to begin. He had become the creator of the gods' continent, adding a stroke to the long river of history. He, Xing Feng, was the creator of the gods' continent. Previously, it was said that Xing Feng had accidentally discovered the deities' continent and created it out of selfishness. This was half true and half false. Xing Feng had indeed come to the gods' continent for his own selfish reasons. However, in order to hide his identity, he had no choice but to mold himself into someone else. The only thing that mattered was that Xing Feng had come from a world other than Earth and the divine continent. This only meant that he had come from the future world. His goal was simple. He wanted to change everything. He had traversed time and space, overcome all obstacles and arrived here, all for the sake of finding the person he loved. And the 3 divine artifacts left behind by Xing Feng were the key to defeating the mysterious person. Yuan Jin told Yun Jian that when he and Xing Feng had just arrived at the gods' continent and created the gods' continent, they had met the mysterious person not long after. At that time, the mysterious person had the speed potion, which could increase the strength of his subordinates by several times. At that time, Xing Feng could not defeat the mysterious person, so he took his beloved woman and went into seclusion. Before Xing Feng went into seclusion, he adopted an adopted son from the gods' continent and made him the ruler of the gods' continent. This adopted son was undoubtedly Si Yi's ancestor. Xing Feng had gone into seclusion, secretly looking for a way to deal with the mysterious person. However, the mysterious person had found his residence and caught Xing Feng and his subordinates in one fell swoop. Only Yuan Jin, who had come to Earth with this secret, was entrusted by Xing Feng. There was no need to explain what had happened after that. Hearing this, Yun Jian's eyes were cold. Her eyes were filled with killing intent, revealing an unprecedented coldness. She was still expressionless, but the words that came out of her mouth were so cold that they could freeze the world. So, what you mean is that the mysterious man took my child away? When she arrived at the martial arts club, everyone in the martial arts club was shocked. Yun Jian, Mo Bufan asked in surprise. But before he finished speaking, Yun Jian spoke first. Is there a tour group near the school? Mo Bufan heard this and nodded. Yes, Yun Jian, are you going to travel with a tour group? I know someone in a tour group. Where are you going? Sign up for his tour group and it will take you to your destination. Where are you going? Mo Bufan asked and looked at Yun Jian. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. After a pause, Yun Jian continued in front of everyone in the martial arts club. Hidden Dragon Mountain. Chapter 26:10. Hey. Hidden Dragon Mountain? I heard that in that place don't climb to the top of the mountain. The environment is elegant and beautiful, but if you climb to the top of the mountain, you are forbidden to enter. I heard that at the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain, there is a real dragon from ancient times. I don't know if it's true or not. There are many adventurers who like to go to Hidden Dragon Mountain for adventures. I know a tour guide who will bring a group of people there in 2 days. He will tell you where to go and where not to go. Then I'll sign you up? Mo Bufan was very concerned about Yun Jian's matters. As he spoke, he immediately took out his phone from his pocket and scrolled through his contacts. Thank you. Yun Jian responded to Mo Bufan, then turned around and left the martial arts club. Our president is going to go to Hidden Dragon Mountain for a trip. How about our martial arts club's entire tour group go on a trip together? Zhou Huntao stood up and shook his butt as he suggested. Come on. You organize it. A girl replied to Zhou Huntao with a laugh. All right. It's a deal. Zhou Huntao replied. Halfway up the Hidden Dragon Mountain, there was a boundary that prohibited entry. This was because somewhere in the Hidden Dragon Mountain, There were dangerous groups of ferocious beasts, piranhas, packs of wolves, groups of poisonous snakes, huge lizards, and so on. There were countless of them. It was very difficult to go to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain. You had to pass through layers of danger to reach the top of the mountain. Most of the adventurers who entered Hidden Dragon Mountain all year round died there. As for Yun Jian, she planned to follow the tour group to Hidden Dragon Mountain and enter the forbidden area alone. She followed the tour group because the tour group led the way so she could reach her destination directly. Jianghu City's largest casino. The casino was filled with the smell of smoke. Yun Jian walked in. Most of the people in the casino were greasy uncles. Some people were too excited to gamble and put their feet on the table, not caring about their image. Here the smell of smoke filled the air. Yun Jian walked in with a backpack on her back and was stopped by the casino's person in charge. "Hey little sister, this is not a place you should come to. Leave quickly." The casino's person in charge was obviously trying to persuade Yun Jian to leave for her own good, but his tone was not good. Could it be that this little girl likes to gamble? Or was it because his family was short of money and he was using himself as a stake? Hee, if you want to use yourself as a stake to bet with us, then I, your son-in-law, will be the first to go. A greasy middle-aged man who had his feet propped on the table and 10 gold rings on both his hands asked lazily as he looked at Yun Jian with a wretched expression. "Count me in." "Me too." Someone in the crowd immediately spoke up. After all, there were all kinds of people in the casino. The world was big and there were all kinds of strange things. In the casino, one could see a lot of evil faces that one would not normally see. "Don't fight with me. Little girl, bet with me." The greasy uncle with gold rings on all 5 of his fingers, who was obviously a rich man, clicked his tongue and said, just when everyone was laughing and joking around, as if they were watching Yun Jian make a fool of herself. Yun Jian pulled open the backpack on her shoulder expressionlessly and flung it at the greasy uncle's face. Voila! A backpack of Grandpa Mao slid out of the backpack, shocking everyone present. Yun Jian's voice that sent chills down one's spine rang abruptly. "I know that this casino sells firearms and equipment behind the scenes. I want to buy the best firearms and equipment you have here. Call your head out in 3 minutes." Chapter 26:11. Yun Jian came to this casino in Jianghu City for only one purpose, and that was to buy the best military equipment as quickly as possible. She wanted to go to the forbidden area of the Hidden Dragon Mountain alone. If she met a god, she would kill a god. If she met a demon, she would kill a demon. Anyone who blocked her would be killed. Good tone. Good girl. Ah. Just as Yun Jian finished speaking, a burly man who was 1.78 meters tall walked over from the side of the casino. This 1.78 meters tall middle-aged man was wearing a gray vest. The muscles on his arms were so thick that they were obvious. He had a long beard and looked older than his actual age. The middle-aged man came in front of Yun Jian and said to Yun Jian, "Then little girl, what kind of military weapons do you want to buy from me?" After that, the middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and looked at Yun Jian. "That depends on what level of military fire you have here." Yun Jian's expression did not change at all. At the end of her sentence, she raised her leg and kicked the stool in front of her. The empty stool collided with the stool that the greasy uncle was sitting on, who had been hit by Yun Jian's backpack of grandpa money. With a bang, the 2 stools collided with each other. The greasy uncle had yet to recover from the shock just now. At this moment, the backpack that contained the bag of grandpa money that had not been spilled out was accurately thrown in front of the middle-aged man with the help of the elastic force. From the moment Yun Jian kicked the stool until now, she did not look away from the middle-aged man's eyes at all. However, she controlled the strength of her feet to the extreme. There was no deviation at all. She used the stool to throw the bag of grandpa money to the middle-aged man's feet without any deviation. When the surrounding gamblers, including the greasy uncle and the middle-aged man, saw this, their pupils constricted and they were shocked. "This money is all yours. Bring the best military equipment here. If the money is not enough, I'll make it up for you." Yun Jian's cold words made the middle-aged man blink fiercely. Her backpack was half the size of her body. The grandpa money in this backpack added up to at least 1,000,000 yuan. The middle-aged man gently licked his lips with the thumb of his right hand. He smiled and stared sharply at Yun Jian. However, he spoke to his subordinate standing behind him. "Go, take out the best equipment from the warehouse." The middle-aged man's men immediately responded and ran to the warehouse. When the gamblers in the casino saw this scene, especially the group of gamblers led by the greasy uncle who teased Yun Jian, they were all stunned. First of all, how did this teenage girl know that this casino was secretly selling firearms? Actually, she was just a little girl. What was the point of spending so much money on firearms? Just as everyone was puzzled, the middle-aged man's subordinates returned from the warehouse. At the same time, they placed a large pile of weapons on an empty chess table. You make your choice. The middle-aged man gestured to Yun Jian. All the gamblers in the casino stopped in their tracks and stared straight at Yun Jian. Everyone watched as Yun Jian walked towards the pile of firearms. All kinds of pistols, rifles, submachine guns, automatic rifles, assault rifles, and all kinds of grenades. If she could pick the best weapons out of so many weapons, then Yun Jian must be someone who knew guns very well. Everyone was waiting to see Yun Jian's choice. Who knew that Yun Jian would walk to the pile of firearms, pick out 2 pistols, a rifle, and 10 grenades. She put them into her backpack and turned to leave without saying anything. The group of criminals who also didn't know guns were all shocked. Suddenly, the middle-aged man looked at Yun Jian's back as she left. He shook his head and said something that shocked everyone with a funny tone. The only 2 high-performance pistols and a top-notch rifle I have here were taken by her just like that. In order to bring these 3 things back to China, I spent a lot of effort. Hello, thank you, Yun Jian replied briefly. Big brother Gu, quick. Look for the plastic bags. Someone is going to throw up. Someone in front of the bus shouted anxiously. Hearing this, Big brother Gu quickly said goodbye to Yun Jian and ran to the front of the bus. The journey was very smooth. When they arrived at the hotel, everyone checked in under Big brother Gu's arrangements. This hotel in Yun province was built with bamboo and had the unique aura of Yun province's ethnic minorities. When her feet stepped on the hotel stairs, they could make a soft creaking sound. After checking in, everyone returned to the hotel after dinner. Yun Jian went straight to the front desk of the hotel. Standing at the front desk of the hotel was a young girl who was about the same age as Yun Jian. This young girl was wearing Yun province's ethnic clothing. She wore a Miao tribe hat on her head and her clothes were adorned with many small accessories. When she walked, these small accessories would make a crisp rustling sound when they collided with each other. Hello, the young girl said with a smile when she saw Yun Jian walking towards her. Hello, I'd like to ask how to reach the peak of Shrouding Dragon Mountain, Yun Jian said directly. Who knew that when the young girl heard Yun Jian's words, her hand paused. In the next second, the abacus in the young girl's hand suddenly slipped from her hand onto the table. She looked as if she was afraid and thought of something terrifying. She exclaimed, You want to go to the peak of Shrouding Dragon Mountain? Come. Wonderful book house. Chapter 26:13. When the girl heard Yun Jian's words, her face was full of horror as if she was frightened. Seeing this, Yun Jian's expression didn't change at all. She naturally knew the reason why the girl was so shocked and trembling. The top of Hidden Dragon Mountain seemed to be cursed by someone. It was rumored that those who went to the top of the mountain were either dead or disabled. Many adventurers and explorers went to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain to find the truth, but they all lost their lives here. Just when the girl was stunned, a woman who was more mature than the girl and dressed like the girl, but dressed more maturely pulled the girl behind her and smiled at Yun Jian. I'm sorry because some time ago several adventurers went to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain, and only one person returned here and that person, he's already crazy. My daughter was scared by the person who came back from Hidden Dragon Mountain, so when she heard the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain she lost control. This woman was obviously more mature than the girl. Hearing this, Yun Jian nodded slightly. My advice is that you don't go to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain. It's definitely not a fun place. Look at the young man sitting on the bench at the door. He went to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain last time, and he was the only one who came back alive. The woman pointed to a young man sitting on a bench near the gate, his head and body trembling incessantly as he counted on his fingers. When the people in the tour group who came here with Yun Jian heard the woman's words, they looked at the young man sitting at the door with some fear and curiosity. He saw the young man counting his fingers over and over again. His eyes were bigger than a dead fish, and he kept shaking his head and muttering in fear, I'm sorry but I'm sorry. Dead. Dead dead dead. Big monster. There's a big monster. Run. 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 This young man who should be no different from a normal person was completely crazy. He kept repeating the movements of his hands and the words of his mouth over and over again. Thank you for the reminder. Seeing this, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. In the end, she turned around and walked out of the door with her backpack. At the moment when she was about to walk out of the door, she turned to look at the woman and said, But I must go to the peak of the Hidden Dragon Mountain. Seeing how persistent Yun Jian was, the woman shook her head and sighed. Alright, be careful. I have a map of the entrance to the peak of Hidden Dragon Mountain. After getting the map, Yun Jian left the hotel without hesitation. She didn't even inform Brother Gu and went to the entrance to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain. This was a cave that stretched as far as the eye could see. No one knew what was on the other side of the cave. Just as Yun Jian was about to step forward, she heard a voice behind her. Wait. Do you also want to go to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain? Let's go together. Yun Jian turned around when she heard the voice. He saw a few familiar faces. We also took the tour group bus with you. When we came, we saw you looking at the window. You probably didn't pay much attention to us. Hello, my name is Zhou Boppy. People call me Zhou Boppy. You can call me Boppy bro. Standing at the front was a fat man who was about 169 meters tall and weighed a full 160 pounds. He patted his belly and said, If you're also going to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain, let's go together. A handsome man who was about 1.8 meters tall and looked cold said to Yun Jian. The only girl in the team winked at Yun Jian and said with a smile, Welcome. Then we have 5 people. Chapter 26:14. When the girl heard Yun Jian's words, her face was full of horror as if she was frightened. Seeing this, Yun Jian's expression didn't change at all. She naturally knew the reason why the girl was so shocked and trembling. The top of Hidden Dragon Mountain seemed to be cursed by someone. It was rumored that those who went to the top of the mountain were either dead or disabled. Many adventurers and explorers went to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain to find the truth, but they all lost their lives here. Just when the girl was stunned, a woman who was more mature than the girl and dressed like the girl, but dressed more maturely pulled the girl behind her and smiled at Yun Jian. I'm sorry because some time ago several adventurers went to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain, and only one person returned here, and that person, he's already crazy. My daughter was scared by the person who came back from Hidden Dragon Mountain, so when she heard the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain she lost control. This woman was obviously more mature than the girl. Hearing this, Yun Jian nodded slightly. My advice is that you don't go to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain. It's definitely not a fun place. Look at the young man sitting on the bench at the door. He went to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain last time, and he was the only one who came back alive. The woman pointed to a young man sitting on a bench near the gate, his head and body trembling incessantly as he counted on his fingers. When the people in the tour group who came here with Yun Jian heard the woman's words, they looked at the young man sitting at the door with some fear and curiosity. He saw the young man counting his fingers over and over again. His eyes were bigger than a dead fish, and he kept shaking his head and muttering in fear, I'm sorry but I'm sorry. Dead. Dead dead dead. Big monster. There's a big monster. Run. 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 This young man who should be no different from a normal person was completely crazy. He kept repeating the movements of his hands and the words of his mouth over and over again. Thank you for the reminder. Seeing this, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. In the end, she turned around and walked out of the door with her backpack. At the moment when she was about to walk out of the door, she turned to look at the woman and said, But I must go to the peak of the Hidden Dragon Mountain. Seeing that Yun Jian was so persistent, the woman shook her head and sighed. Okay, be careful. I have a map of the entrance to the peak of Hidden Dragon Mountain. After getting the map, Yun Jian left the hotel without hesitation. She didn't even inform Brother Gu and went to the entrance to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain. This was a cave that stretched as far as the eye could see. No one knew what was on the other side of the cave. Just as Yun Jian was about to step forward, she heard a voice behind her. Wait. Do you also want to go to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain? Let's go together. Yun Jian turned around when she heard the voice. He saw a few familiar faces. We also took the tour group bus with you. When we came, we saw that you kept looking at the window. You probably didn't pay much attention to us. Hello, my name is Zhou Boppy. People call me Boppy Zhou. You can call me Boppy bro. Standing at the front was a fat man who was about 169 meters tall and weighed a full 160 pounds. He patted his belly and said, If you're also going to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain, let's go together. A handsome man who was about 1.8 meters tall and looked cold said to Yun Jian. The only girl in the team winked at Yun Jian and said with a smile, Welcome. Then we have 5 people. Come. Wonderful book house. Chapter 26:15. Zhang Xuanfei, Wang Lei, Dong Wendong, and Zhou Boppy were not ordinary people. It could be seen from their skills that they were different from ordinary people. The four of them listened to Yun Jian's words. The snakes around them were either killed or burned to death by Yun Jian's bite of the grenades and diesel. They were originally worried that they would be bitten by the snakes while running. After all, there were almost 100 snakes that came out of the grass. Now that there were no obstacles, the four of them started running. Zhang Xuanfei and the others only breathed a sigh of relief when they reached an open area. "Where's Yun Jian? Is she here?" They ran to a relatively open area with fewer weeds. Wang Lei looked back and did not see Yun Jian following them. Her face darkened. "Didn't you notice if she's following us?" Fatty Zhou Bapi panted the loudest. He leaned over and held his knees as he panted. When the other two heard this, they shook their heads. "I'll go back and save her." After waiting for about 10 minutes, Yun Jian did not come back. Zhang Xuanfei, who was the leader of the four, turned around and walked back. Wang Lei was one step ahead of Zhang Xuanfei. She reached out and grabbed the corner of Zhang Xuanfei's shirt. "No. You can't forget why we're here. If we fail the mission, we'll die. But there are more than 4 of us. Those people are controlling our families. If we don't get the thing, won't our families?" Wang Lei's voice became softer and softer. Just as Wang Lei finished speaking, a series of noises rang out from the direction the 4 of them had come from. Yun Jian walked over with her huge backpack. There was not a single trace of dirt on her body. "Yun Jian, you heard it?" Wang Lei's face changed slightly. Zhang Xuanfei, Zhou Bapi and the others swallowed hard. Wang Lei, Zhang Xuanfei and the others had secrets. If a normal girl heard Wang Lei's words, she would probably rush up and ask Wang Lei why they didn't go back to save her. Or perhaps, after knowing that Wang Lei and the others had a secret, they kept pestering Wang Lei and the others to tell them about it. However, Yun Jian did not. She carried her backpack and walked past Wang Lei and the others without any change in her expression. "It's time to continue." "Yun Jian, you're not angry?" Wang Lei stared at Yun Jian. Following Yun Jian, she turned around and asked in shock. "If it were me, I would do the same." Yun Jian didn't turn around. She just replied casually. This reply made Wang Lei really speechless. She opened her mouth, but in the end she didn't say anything. The group carried their respective luggage and continued walking. Other than the hundreds of cobras that suddenly appeared when they first entered the cave, there was no other danger along the way. Although the mountain road wasn't easy to walk on, everyone spent 2 hours and finally arrived at a place very close to the top of Hidden Dragon Mountain. The next hour's journey was quite smooth. However, when they were going up the slope, they saw many skeletons of animals thrown into the grass. "What? There's no danger. Why do people outside say that on Hidden Dragon Mountain, those who enter the mountain are either dead or disabled? I really don't understand." Fatty Zhou Bapi could be considered a lively person. He was bored and held a weed in his mouth, panting as he climbed the mountain. "Fatty, shut up. Remember to be vigilant at all times." Zhang Xuanfei scolded. Then he looked at Yun Jian and said to her, "I think this place is a bit strangely quiet. Did you find anything else?" When Zhang Xuanfei asked this question, Yun Jian didn't respond at all at first. Everyone followed Yun Jian all the way and knew Yun Jian's character. She didn't reply, which meant that she didn't want to pay attention to it. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian wouldn't speak, Yun Jian suddenly pursed her red lips and said something that made everyone's hair stand on end. "The things that were casually thrown into the grass on the side of the mountain road are not animals, but human skeletons. Come. Wonderful book house. Come." Chapter 26:16. Suddenly hearing Yun Jian's words, coupled with the quietness along the way, Zhang Xuanfei, Zhou Bapi, Wang Lei and Dong Wenming stopped and looked at the skeletons that were casually thrown into the bushes on the side of the mountain road. Those skeletons had been completely scattered and could only be vaguely seen as a pile of scattered skeletons. Under normal circumstances, seeing this pile of skeletons on the mountain, normal people would think that it was a pile of animal skeletons. Yun Jian's words directly shocked everyone. "What did you say?" "All we saw along the way were human skeletons." Wang Lei exclaimed. "Yun Jian, why did you say that they were human skeletons?" As the leader, Zhang Xuanfei frowned and turned to look at Yun Jian. Although the fatty Zhou Bapi was also frightened, he was much calmer than Wang Lei. At that time, Zhou Bapi looked at Yun Jian and said, "If these are all human skeletons, then these people, could it be that they were the people who entered Hidden Dragon Mountain and died in Hidden Dragon Mountain in the past?" After Zhou Bapi said this, everyone's face sank. They were completely shocked by Zhou Bapi's guess. At this time, Yun Jian pointed to a huge skull on the side of the mountain road. When everyone was still unsure whether the skeleton on the side of the mountain road was a human skeleton, she said indifferently, That's a skull. That's a head. You guys should be able to tell the difference between a human head and an animal head. After Yun Jian's words, Wang Lei directly grabbed the arm of the fatty Zhou Bapi who was closest to her and screamed in fright, "Ah! Ah! It's a human. That's a human skull. What we saw along the way must be human skeletons. What is this place? How could this be?" Wang Lei's scream made the other three people, except for Yun Jian, suffocate in fright. Just when Wang Lei and the other three people's hearts were trembling, Yun Jian suddenly turned over and entered the bushes full of human skeletons. This scene could be said to have completely frightened Wang Lei and the other three. She was just a teenage girl. Wasn't she afraid of the skeletons in the bushes? Just thinking about it made their hair stand on end. And what about Yun Jian? She actually jumped directly into the pile of human bones. Originally, Wang Lei thought that she and Zhang Xuanfei's group of 4 had an unspeakable secret. What happened to them was even more shocking. But now Yun Jian's strange actions were so mysterious that they didn't dare to suffocate. What kind of past had she gone through? Wang Lei and the other 3 were dumbfounded. While he was still in shock, Yun Jian had already jumped out of the bushes full of skeletons. She gently rubbed her right hand as if she was feeling the skeletons that she had just touched. "Yun Jian, where did you go just now?" Wang Lei asked. As soon as Wang Lei said this, Yun Jian spoke first. "The owners of these skeletons all suffered serious injuries when they were alive. You actually know how to perform an autopsy." Dong Wenming, who had been silently holding a laptop in his hand, suddenly looked up at Yun Jian in shock and asked in a daze. Yun Jian nodded slightly. Then, with Yun Jian leading, the group continued to move up the mountain. But because of the things that happened before, when the group continued to move up the mountain, their hearts were suddenly filled with something called horror. Except for Yun Jian, the other 4 people's expressions changed 1,000 times. After another half an hour, the 5 people finally arrived at the top of the Hidden Dragon Mountain. The road up the Hidden Dragon Mountain didn't seem to be very dangerous, but there was a kind of creepy feeling everywhere. It was as if there was something frightening waiting for them. At the top of the Hidden Dragon Mountain was a huge palace. And in front of the palace, there was a large martial arts arena. The architectural style of this large martial arts arena was extremely similar to the martial arts arenas in modern online games. If everything here looked so ordinary as the top of an ordinary mountain, then the large bloodstains on this large martial arts arena gave people a kind of fear that came from the depths of their souls. This large martial arts arena was covered with countless blood. Because no one cleaned it for many years, not only did the dried bloodstains turn into a dark red color, they could even smell the rotten and bloody smell of the dried blood on this large martial arts arena from far away. Ugh! Wang Lei saw this scene and couldn't help but turn her head in retch. At this moment, everyone saw that in front of the large martial arts arena, more than 10 black-robed people appeared from head to toe. And in front of the black-robed people, stood a woman with an enchanting figure. That woman was clearly the leader of this group of black-robed people. The woman slowly turned around under the gazes of Yun Jian, Wang Lei, and the other 3 people. The moment she saw the woman's face, Yun Jian fiercely frowned in front of Wang Lei and the other 3 people and called out, "Shinji! Come. Wonderful book house. Come." Chapter 26:17. Hidden Dragon Mountain did indeed have a third divine weapon. However, based on the current situation, the third divine tool hidden in Hidden Dragon Mountain must have been taken away by the mysterious person. And this place had been set up with an inescapable net. They were just waiting for Yun Jian to come so that they could capture Yun Jian in one fell swoop. After Yun Jian entered the large arena, a thin layer of spirit energy rose from the semicircular arena. This was enough to prove that the mastermind behind all this was the mysterious person. And the people waiting for Yun Jian here were Shinji and this self-proclaimed younger brother of Master Jihuang, whose head had been twisted by Ce not long ago. This black-robed man who claimed to be Master Jihuang's younger brother was called Lin Wu. When Lin Wu saw Yun Jian standing in the semicircular barrier surrounded by spirit energy and leaning back, he laughed loudly again. "This is the spirit energy that Master has just given me. Combined with the 10,000 times potion, this barrier is created. Even if you are the witch god of Yulong continent, you won't be able to escape. Today you are dead meat." From the faint layer of spirit energy barrier that clearly didn't belong to Earth, trapping Yun Jian to everything that had happened after. It was telling Wang Lei, Zhou Bapi, Zhang Xuanfei, and Dong Wenming that what they were seeing was beyond reality and beyond science. This was like a sci-fi movie. No, it was even more terrifying than a sci-fi movie. Wang Lei and the others were so scared that their faces were twitching. "Master Lin Wu, you don't have to do anything to kill her. I alone am enough. Shenji, who was standing in the barrier with Yun Jian, spoke up. Shenji looked at Yun Jian with murderous eyes. All right. Since you have already received part of my spirit energy, then you, Shenji, will be the one to defeat her. Lin Wu narrowed his eyes and looked at Yun Jian like he was looking at a dead person. Shenji had received part of Lin Wu's spirit energy. Lin Wu had given it to Shenji. Its main purpose was to allow Shenji to use the spirit energy he had given her to escape after Shenji lured Yun Jian into the large arena. The sorcerer god of Yulong continent would be the only one who would die in this arena. What's more, Lin Wu had used all of his spiritual power to set up the barrier. If Yun Jian managed to escape from the barrier, or if he had to deal with Yun Jian alone, he would only be beaten up by Yun Jian. 006, this is the last time I challenge you. Shenji raised her hands. She rested her sword on her shoulder and looked at Yun Jian. Yun Jian held the 2 butterfly knives in her hands and said cheerfully, I accept your challenge. At this moment, this scene was similar to the battle between Yun Jian and Shenji in the Inhun organization, where only one of them could survive. Just like before, they were trapped in a large cage. Only the person who killed the other party had the right to leave the cage alive. The only difference was that the cage had turned into a barrier made of spiritual power. Aside from that, it was still the same battle, the same situation, and the same battlefield where only one of them could survive. Shenji waved her sword. Without any warning, she began the battle. She slashed down heavily at Yun Jian. Yun Jian dodged to the side, avoiding Shenji's attack. She turned around and wrapped her hand around Shenji's arm. Shenji flipped around and did a backflip. The 2 of them were both from the Inhun organization. If they really fought, they were evenly matched. After all, while Shenji saw Yun Jian as her only opponent in the world, Yun Jian also saw Shenji as her only opponent. The 2 of them had grown to become the strongest assassins in the world under these circumstances. Wang Lei, Zhang Xuanfei, and the others were so shocked that their hearts were pounding. The 2 of them fought for a full 5 minutes. Lin Wu watched as Yun Jian dodged Shenji's attack and circled behind Shenji. She wanted to stab the butterfly knife into Shenji's back. Shenji had no time to think about anything else. Just as Shenji was about to lose, Lin Wu raised his hand and used his spiritual power to control the blades inside the barrier. He attacked Yun Jian. One blade after another was enough to kill Yun Jian before she had time to think about anything else. Lin Wu's smile deepened. Heavens! Yun Jian, run! Wang Lei screamed in fear. However, the blade was already close to Yun Jian's side. Just as everyone thought that Yun Jian was going to die, Shenji suddenly turned around and grabbed Yun Jian's wrist. She gripped the long sword in her hand and stabbed it viciously at Yun Jian's neck. The long sword was about to pierce Yun Jian's neck. Just as it was about to pierce Yun Jian's body, Shenji used Lin Wu's spiritual energy to open a passage that was big enough for one person to leave swiftly while he tossed the saber away with his other hand and grabbed Yun Jian, flinging her out of the passage that was big enough for one person to leave at once. Shenji flashed a regretful smile at Yun Jian the moment his heart was pierced by thousands of arrows. Just like how she had confidently said to Yun Jian countless times, I will definitely surpass you. Shenji's seductive face curved up slightly. Countless blades pierced through Shenji's organs. She watched as Yun Jian was safely sent out of the barrier. She licked the blood from the corner of her mouth and said regretfully to Yun Jian, I lost. After leaving the organization for so many years, I still can't surpass you. I don't think I'll ever have the chance to challenge you again. But I still want to tell you something. 006, I will definitely surpass you. If there's an afterlife, I will. Chapter 26:18. If Lin Wu hadn't tricked her midway, Yun Jian's knife would have pierced Shenji's back. Shenji could have used Lin Wu's trick to defeat Yun Jian with a sneak attack. She had a choice, a chance to defeat Yun Jian. But she wasn't confident. Perhaps in Shenji's eyes, she would only win if she defeated Yun Jian fair and square. But she'd spent her entire life chasing after Yun Jian. Even at the end of her life, she hadn't been able to surpass Yun Jian. She knew that if Lin Wu hadn't interfered, she wouldn't have been able to get close to Yun Jian. But she'd lost the last battle. What a pity. She had no more chances. Shenji felt her organs hurt like crazy. Her eyelids felt heavy as if she could fall asleep at any moment. Being flung out of the barrier, Yun Jian knelt on one knee on the ground. Her pupils constricted as the object in her hand rubbed her palm until it was bleeding profusely. As she gripped the item too tightly, blood oozed out of her palm. The blood that flowed from her palm looked like it would never stop, causing Wang Lei, Zhang Xuanfei, and the others who were watching from afar to feel their hearts skip a beat. They'd thought it was just a show of friends betraying each other. Who would have thought that the tables would turn so drastically? Just as Wang Lei, Zhang Xuanfei, and the others sucked in their breaths, thinking that Yun Jian would break down and scream like a normal teenage girl after witnessing the scene, Yun Jian was stunned. Yun Jian suddenly stood up. Her face was still expressionless. She looked up at Shinji, who was in the large arena. Her lips curved into a smile that made the world lose its color. While Wang Lei, Zhang Xuanfei, and the others were surprised that Yun Jian could still laugh at a time like this, Yun Jian took 2 steps forward. 3 seconds before Shinji closed his eyes for the last time, she mimicked what she had retorted the first time she met Shinji and spoke softly, "I'm sorry. No matter how many lives I've lived, you will always be defeated by me. I will wait for you. Remember your promise. My opponent can only be you." Yun Jian had never admitted to Shinji that she saw her as an opponent. Because of this, Shinji couldn't accept it. She wanted to surpass Yun Jian. She wanted to make Yun Jian admit that she saw her as an opponent. Shinji had fought hard for her short life just to prove herself. She did not ask for anything else in her life but for Yun Jian to acknowledge her personally. That way she could die without regrets. Shinji had a dream. A very, very long dream, one that she would never wake up from for the rest of her life. In the dream, 2 8-year-old girls had met for the first time in a cage made of iron. But their first meeting had been met with no other choice. In her dream, she pointed the knife at the other party and swore loudly, "The one who can walk out of this cage today is me." In the dream, the other girl, who was covered in blood like her, had a cold look in her eyes. Her eyes were as cold as the blood and wounds on her body. That was the first time she'd heard her speak. Her face was expressionless. Her voice was cold as she pointed at the pile of corpses outside the cage. "In 1 minute you'll be like them. You'll be defeated by my blade." Because of this one sentence, her fate in the dream had been changed. She had been defeated by him. These 4 words had been used throughout her entire life. It was the beginning of her fate and the end of her life. Chapter 26:19. Yun Jian. Wang Lei said worriedly when she saw that Yun Jian was tightly clutching something that she couldn't tell from its appearance. Yun Jian's current state scared Wang Lei. If Yun Jian's appearance had made Wang Lei and the others feel that she was just a naive teenage girl when they entered the cave, then now, they were filled with doubts about Yun Jian. Wang Lei and the others had come to Shrouded Dragon Mountain with a goal in mind. Wang Lei and the others were very mysterious because of their secrets. It was hard to believe even if they were told. But when they saw the scene in front of them, they were shocked. Yun Jian's secrets were something that even the secrets in their hearts couldn't compare to. Shinji hadn't betrayed her. He never had. Yun Jian was tightly clutching something. It was an ancient bronze wooden hairpin. Wooden hairpins were something that women in ancient times put into their hair to tie it up. The one in Yun Jian's hand was the 3rd divine artifact apart from the sandalwood box and wooden fan. It was something that Shinji had secretly stuffed into her hand when he tossed her out of the arena that was enveloped by a huge barrier during her battle with him just now. As soon as the wooden hairpin entered her hand, Yun Jian felt a strong spiritual power. It was Xing Feng's aura. "Damn it, damn it, damn it. Shinji, you actually betrayed the master. Damn you." When Lin Wu saw this, he was so angry that he went crazy. He clenched his fists tightly, and a wave of spirit energy that was clearly not as strong as before flew out from his body and rushed into the large battle arena that was surrounded by a barrier. Puff puff puff. Shinji's corpse was trapped in the large arena by the powerful barrier. More blades stabbed into it and the corpse was unrecognizable. "You actually dared to betray the master. You actually dared to betray me." Dot, dot, dot. Lin Wu seemed to have gone crazy. He began to madly destroy Shinji's body. The master that Lin Wu spoke of was undoubtedly the mysterious person. But 3 seconds after Lin Wu destroyed Shinji's body, his spiritual power seemed to be blocked midway. He suddenly stopped in place. Lin Wu's expression changed drastically. "It's you who deserves to die." Just as Lin Wu raised his head, he suddenly saw the girl who was standing in the distance slowly walking towards him. The blood that flowed down from her palm splattered all the way, but Yun Jian seemed to have lost her sense of pain. Her face was expressionless. Wherever she went, the blood followed. Lin Wu's heart tightened. The 10 black-robed men standing beside Lin Wu attacked Yun Jian one after another. At this time, Yun Jian's other hand that was not holding the wooden hairpin suddenly rose into the air. Boom boom boom. A spiritual energy that was many times stronger than Lin Wu's condensed in front of Wang Lei and the others. She. Wang Lei and the other three were so scared that their faces suddenly changed. However, at the moment when Wang Lei and the other three were so scared that their faces turned green, that powerful spiritual energy had already swept up more than a dozen black-robed men. At the same time, the black-robed men, with the exception of Lin Wu, were crushed like tomatoes. Their bodies instantly exploded into rivers of blood. Not even a single bone was left. Who the hell is she? Zhang Xuanfei's expression was so scared that words couldn't describe it. Zhang Xuanfei, the calmest of the four, shouted in shock. But at this moment Yun Jian looked at Lin Wu as the blood dripped down. Her face was still expressionless as she spoke in a dark, sinister voice. It's your turn. It's your turn. What kind of death do you want to try? Chapter 26-20. Yun Jian's words were terrifying, shocking Zhang Xuanfei and the rest as well as Lin Wu. Lin Wu had never been in such a dangerous situation. He felt fear spreading from the bottom of his heart, a fear that came from the depths of his soul spiraling within him. What terrifying ability! If Shenji had not fought Yun Jian in the arena just now, killing Yun Jian would have been harder than ascending to the heavens. He had overestimated himself. He had underestimated Yun Jian. Even if Shenji had not intervened, Yun Jian might not have died. Lin Wu took 2 big steps back, turned around and tried to escape. However, just as Lin Wu was about to turn around and flee, a monstrous spiritual energy enveloped the entire area. There was no way Lin Wu could escape. His eyes widened in fear. You. Lin Wu's exposed pair of pitch-black eyes flashed with an incomparably terrifying color. His pupils shrunk into a ball at this moment. Just as Lin Wu watched Yun Jian draw closer to him, Lin Wu's eyes widened. Yun Jian, who had been at least a dozen meters away from him, was suddenly right in front of him. Yun Jian did have the ability to make cultivators lose all their spiritual energy when they were within 3 meters of her. However, the mysterious person had already developed a potion that could counter her physique, so it was no longer effective to the mysterious person. Lin Wu's pupils contracted violently as he was about to attack Yun Jian again. The deicide blade that suddenly appeared in Yun Jian's hand was already plunged into Lin Wu's body. She spoke faintly, but her words sent chills down Wang Lei and the rest's spines. Since you don't want to die, I'll slice your flesh into pieces, piece by piece. While Yun Jian had the upper hand here, Yiji had just returned home from school in Longmen City. Mom. The teacher praised me in class today. Yiji shouted as soon as she entered. At home, Yiji could communicate with Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian in normal language. However, she was still afraid of her classmates in school. The fear of people that came from the depths of her soul and her innate cowardice was something that would never change for Yiji. After all, her birth was unnecessary. She was already lucky to be able to live to this day. Your parents are out. Just as Yiji dashed into the house, a man's deep voice rang from the side. In the next second, Yuan Xing with a ghost mask appeared before Yiji. Yiji was stunned before she ran to the sofa. She tossed her bag down and went out the door, ignoring Yuan. Seeing this, Yuan Jin blinked his eyes and followed. When they arrived at Lan Su's house, Yiji opened the door first. As soon as she entered, she hugged Lan Su tightly and then walked towards Zhou Yuran's small room. The little kid and the girl were now playing with Zhou Yu. Yuan Xing saw Yiji walk into Zhou Yuran's room and followed her in. However, Lan Su did not see him. At this moment, Zhou Yuran was using the fact that he was taller than the little fellow. He pushed the little fellow aside with one foot and held the little girl with the other hand. He held the little girl in his arms very intimately. Look at what I've brought you guys. Yiji took out a few biscuits and passed them to them with a grin. Yuan Xing glanced at the pitiful little kid who was being held by Zhou Yu's toe and suddenly recalled what Xingfeng had told him when he transmigrated back to the present from the future. If you see Zhou Yu, remember to grab him and beat him up. He's always bullied me when I was young. Chapter 26-21. If he guessed correctly, this little guy who was being pressed down by Zhou Yuran's foot was Xingfeng, the one who took charge of everything and traveled through time with him unswervingly. Cough. Yuan Xing looked at the little guy pressed down by Zhou Yuran's foot and compared him to Xingfeng. He almost laughed out loud. But in the end, Yuan Xing suppressed his laughter and coughed softly. He walked over and picked up Zhou Yuran according to Xingfeng's instructions. What are you doing? Are you bullying the child? Let go. Let go. Yiji saw Yuan Xing suddenly grab Zhou Yuran. She walked over and grabbed Yuan Xing's sleeve, desperately trying to drag him out of the door. Yuan Xing could only let go of Yiji's hand. When he first met Yiji, Yiji was still very afraid of him. He didn't expect Yi Ji to be so bold as to grab him. Yuan Xing narrowed his eyes. Just as he let go of Zhou Yiran's hand, Zhou Yiran slid back onto the bed and angrily kicked Yuan Xing's wrist. With this kick, Yuan Xing's hand was kicked away and landed on Yi Ji's voluptuous breasts. Because he didn't react in time, when he grabbed Yi Ji's chest, Yuan Xing's hand reflexively squeezed. The air was silent for a while. Yuan Xing and Yi Ji were both stunned. When Yi Ji finally reacted, she pushed Yuan Xian's hand away and muttered under her breath as she ran out, "Hooligan! Pervert!" Yuan Xing, who was standing in the same spot, didn't expect this. But that touch was soft. It was very comfortable. Yun Jian spent an hour cutting Lin Wu into pieces. Wang Lei and the others were already sitting on the ground, completely shocked by the bloody scene in front of them. After cutting Lin Wu into pieces, Yun Jian didn't even look at Wang Lei and the others. She took Shinji's body away and quickly disappeared from their sight. It was as if she had never been to Hidden Dragon Mountain. Shinji was the same as Yun Jian. He was from country Z. Yun Jian spent 3 hours to find Shinji's hometown. She still remembered one time, the only time, when she and Shinji had sat shoulder to shoulder and talked all night. Shinji said that other than surpassing her, she also had a dream. She wanted to be buried in her birthplace after she died. She wanted to be buried like a normal person and enter the family tree. Yun Jian had been abducted when she was young and entered the Inhun organization. Shinji, on the other hand, had run away from home and joined Inhun of his own free will. Shinji was born in a family that favored boys over girls. Her parents treated her like a slave when she was young, and even called her an adopted daughter. When she was young, she couldn't bear it and ran away from home. Coincidentally, she joined the Inhun organization. However, when she joined the Inhun organization, she did not know that the survival of the organization was so cruel. After Shinji left Inhun, he never looked for his family again. Qinghai City, Haidao Town. Haidao Town was completely different from Xinjiang Town. Most of the residents of Haidao Town relied on fishing for a living. Although it was a town, it was rich in seafood. Furthermore, it was a coastal city, so the economic conditions were not bad. Yun Jian held an urn of ashes in her hands and knocked on the door of a courtyard house in Haidao Town. Shinji's family still retained the ancient courtyard house style, and their way of life was still the same. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law lived together, and the uncle and sister-in-law lived together. Yun Jian had seen the woman who opened the door before. She was Shinji's mother, Yun Hua. "You are?" Yun Hua glanced at Yun Jian and asked casually when he saw that it was a girl who knocked on the door. Yun Jian also glanced at Yun Hua and was about to enter. "I'm taking your daughter to the ancestral hall." The ancestral hall was the place where the clan worshipped their ancestors or sages in ancient times. It was also the place where the clan leader exercised his authority. If ordinary clansmen violated the clan rules, they would be educated and punished here. Clearly, Shinji's family still retained the style of the previous century. Entering the ancestral hall meant that it was an honor for such a family to be buried and enter the family tree. However, Yun Hua's expression suddenly changed when she heard Yun Jian say, "her daughter." She swished in front of Yun Jian and said with an extremely ugly expression, "Who are you? I've never had a daughter. My family only has 3 sons. How can I have a daughter? How dare you talk nonsense in front of someone else's house? I'm going to call the police." Chapter 26-22. When Yun Hua said this, her eyes dodged as if someone had seen through her hidden thoughts for many years. As she spoke, she reached out to hold the door, wanting to lock Yun Jian outside. Just as the door was slowly closed by Yun Hua until there was only a thin gap left, a long, slender leg suddenly stretched out. A slender, straight and beautiful leg suddenly stretched out and pressed against the crack of the door, preventing Yun Hua from completely closing and locking the door. "What's going on? Why are you so strange? It's fine if you go to someone else's house and spout nonsense, but you still want to barge into someone else's house." Just by looking at Yun Hua for the first time, Yun Hua was not an unreasonable shrew. As a person, she had a bottom line. Yun Jian's words had probably touched Yun Hua's bottom line, causing her to panic. It was the feeling of a secret that had been hidden for many years suddenly being exposed in front of others. It was like staying up late to play with your phone in school and suddenly being discovered by your mother. Yun Hua felt that way at this moment. Yun Jian, who had used her foot to block the gap of the door, looked up slightly. Her eyes were cold. Only then did Yun Hua look straight into Yun Jian's eyes. Her heart involuntarily trembled. Her gaze was too cold. As long as her memorial tablet is placed in the ancestral hall and her name is recorded in the family tree, I'll leave. This was Yun Jian's last wish to fulfill for Shinji. Seeing Yun Jian's unrelenting expression, Yunhua was afraid that this matter would blow up and cause the old master and old madam in charge of the family to rush out when they heard the news. Yunhua gulped. She opened the door and walked out. Then she closed the door halfway and looked around. Seeing that no one was passing by, Yunhua counted 500 yuan from her pocket and placed it on Shinji's urn that Yun Jian was holding. She pleaded with Yun Jian, "It's not like I'm not a mother. Our Cheng family is only allowed to have boys and not girls. If anyone gives birth to a daughter, they will be looked down upon by their husbands and bullied by their mothers-in-law and fathers-in-law." I was also at my wit's end. When the child went missing, I was also afraid. On the day she left, I followed her all the way. In the end, I watched her leave with a man who gave her bread and felt relieved. "You can keep the money. I really don't have any money. If the daughter-in-law of the Cheng family hides money, she will be punished according to the family rules. I know I've let the child down, but I have no choice but to ask you for help." Shinji's surname was Cheng. The Cheng family that Yunhua had mentioned was Shinji's family. Yunhua's lips had been trembling ever since he heard the news of Shinji's death. But after marrying into a feudalistic family, she didn't dare to get a divorce and was even more afraid of losing everything she had now. As the saying goes, a married woman obeys her husband. Yunhua herself was not a person who favored boys over girls. Because she was afraid that she would not live well in her husband's family, she could only obey her in-laws. Yunhua thought that if he gave Yun Jian money, Yun Jian would leave. Unexpectedly, Yun Jian held Shinji's ashes with one hand and threw the money back to her with the other. She said coldly, "I don't want money. I just want her to enter the Cheng family's ancestral hall." Yun Jian's persistence made Yunhua anxious. Just as Yunhua was panicking, old Master Cheng's strong male voice sounded from behind the door. "Who do you want to enter my Cheng family's ancestral hall?" The half-closed door behind him was opened. An old man in his 70s walked out of the courtyard majestically with a walking stick. His eyes were sharp and his eyes were sparkling. He had the aura of a feudal landlord in ancient times. Behind him was a large group of descendants, all of whom were men. Old Master Cheng looked at Yun Jian with a dignified aura. Under everyone's gaze, he repeated to Yun Jian, "My Cheng family doesn't have a biological daughter wandering outside. Moreover, she's just a woman and not the mistress of the family. How can she have the right to enter my Cheng family's ancestral hall?" Chapter 26-23. Moreover, who knows what's in the urn you're holding? The old man's words carried a strong aura. Even those who didn't know the situation would have an illusion that the old man's words were reasonable after hearing the old man's righteous words. If a family favored sons over daughters, there would be no peace if a daughter was born. If both her father-in-law and mother-in-law favored sons over daughters, then it would be over. And you can never imagine how frightening it is when a family that retains a feudal mindset values their sons. In fact, none of the old women Yun Jian had met in the countryside could compare to how much the Cheng family valued their sons. In the Cheng family, if a daughter-in-law couldn't give birth to a son, the Cheng family's men had the right to find another woman to have a son with. Even the country's policies couldn't do anything about it. Under Grandpa Cheng's threatening gaze, the younger generation of the Cheng family, including Yunhua, all thought that Yun Jian would turn and leave. However, Yun Jian strode forward expressionlessly. She didn't even look at Grandpa Cheng as she walked past him and the rest of the Cheng family into the courtyard. "I said, I want her to be buried in the Cheng family's ancestral hall. Cheng Ziyin, born on a rainy night on August 6, 1984. I want her to be buried in the Cheng family's most glorious way. Her memorial tablet will be placed in the Cheng family's ancestral hall, and her name will be recorded in the Cheng family's genealogy." Yun Jian held Shinji's urn and spoke one word without taking a step. She was very calm. Every word was like the cold conversation she had with Shinji in the past. Her heavy words were spoken for everyone present to hear. Cheng Ziyin was Shinji's original name. She had long abandoned her surname and name. Today Yun Jian had picked up her surname and name and brought her back to the Cheng family. She would fulfill Shinji's wish and bury her as an ordinary person. Yun Jian's words were even more imposing and arrogant than Grandpa Cheng's. Everyone in the Cheng clan heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this. She thought that after Yun Jian's words, old Master Cheng would fly into a rage again. Unexpectedly, the old man's eyes widened as he stared at Yun Jian. "How do you know that on the rainy night of August 6, 1984, Yunhua gave birth to a child?" Those who knew about this matter had been dismissed from the Cheng family for more than 10 years. Besides, isn't that child a stillborn? What? There were very few people who knew about what had happened more than 20 years ago. But how old was Yun Jian? She could actually remember something that happened more than 20 years ago. Find out everything. Plop. Just as the old man was puzzled, Yun Hua suddenly knelt in front of everyone. That child is mine. They're mine. I gave birth to a girl, Zine. Zine is my biological daughter. I didn't adopt her later on. She's my biological daughter. Yun Hua suddenly burst into tears. 20 years ago, Yun Hua gave birth to Shinji. When she realized that she had given birth to a girl, she found a nanny to bring back a stillborn baby and lied to the Qing clan that the child had died. Less than 2 days later, he adopted another child. The child he adopted was actually Yun Hua's biological son, Shinji. Later, Shinji couldn't take it anymore. She ran away from home and never came back. Everyone in the Qing clan was stunned by Yun Hua's sudden admission. I've let my child down. But what can I do? What can I do? If you knew that I gave birth to a girl, would I still have a foothold in the Qing clan? Come. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 26-24. Yes, if the fact that Yun Hua gave birth to a girl was exposed, the Qing family would only think that she was a sow who couldn't give birth to a son. In such a feudal family, if you were judged to be a woman who couldn't give birth to a son, your husband would leave you for another woman. Everyone in the family would look down on you. Yun Hua chose to abandon Shinji for her own selfish reasons. She didn't value boys over girls, but she had married into a family that valued boys over girls. She had no other choice. In ancient times, there were even more families like the Qing family, so it wasn't strange. Was this the corruption of morals, or the lack of humanity? At first, Yun Hua wouldn't say anything even if she was beaten to death. But since Yun Jian said this, Yun Hua understood her father-in-law. She knew that with the old man's personality, he would definitely investigate what happened in the past. Once it was found out, her life would be even more difficult. So for this, Yun Hua chose to admit it herself. Yun Hua's husband, who was Shinji's biological father, was also stunned when he heard Yun Hua's words. The old man and everyone else present were shocked. No one expected that as the child's biological mother, Yun Hua would do such a cruel thing for her own selfish desires. I don't care about your family's matters, but I'm going to meditate in the ancestral hall today. Yun Jian held Shinji's urn. After hearing the arguments around her, she didn't move at all. She walked towards the Qing family's ancestral hall. Stop. The old man didn't even have time to resolve the matter. When he heard Yun Jian's words, he rushed to Yun Jian with his walking stick. He blocked Yun Jian's path and said to Yun Jian, even if she really is my granddaughter, I won't allow her to enter the ancestral hall. The Qing family has its own rules. In the Qing family, only the men of the Qing family and the woman who is the mistress of the Qing family can enter the ancestral hall. This sentence was clearly blatant discrimination against women. All the men of the Qing family could enter the ancestral hall and be worshipped by the future generations, but only the mistress of the Qing family had the right to enter the ancestral hall. Yun Jian's eyes were cold. But this wasn't the end. The old man saw that Yun Jian was listening to him, so he added, since ancient times the men went out to earn money while the women stayed at home. If a woman can be like a man and make a career outside, I have nothing to say about her entering the ancestral hall. But in the 600 years of our Qing family, there has never been a record of a woman being able to make a name for herself outside. So, the old man meant that apart from giving birth to children, to get married, and to follow the mistress of the Qing family, there was no other purpose. Because that was how the Qing family had been for the past 600 years. The old man thought that Yun Jian would stop when she heard that. But the old man was the old man. The old man was stunned, but he nodded. Yes, but she's a girl. How can she? Just as the old man finished speaking, Yun Jian said coldly, come out. Right after she said that, a lot of people appeared on the roof of the courtyard house. They jumped down from the roof and stood beside Yun Jian. Everyone in the Qing family was shocked. Just when everyone was at a loss, Yun Jian suddenly said to everyone, they are all Shinji's men. The ace of the world's largest assassin organization, codenamed Shinji. His net worth is $39 billion US. Is this enough to enter the Qing family's ancestral hall? Chapter 26-25. He was the ace of the world's largest assassin organization. He had a total of $39 billion US under his name. With this kind of achievement, let alone entering the Qing family's ancestral hall, It wouldn't be a problem for him to enter and leave the Qing family's ancestral hall tens of thousands of times. The Qing family had never had an outstanding descendant with a total of $39 billion under his name. If that was converted to RMB, it would be trillions. They hadn't even seen what a billion RMB looked like. With Yun Jian's words and the fact that they had been hiding in every corner of the courtyard house since the beginning, no one had noticed their sudden appearance. They were like assassins in ancient times who came and went like ghosts. Everyone in the Qing family, including Old Master Qing, was stunned. Their faces were pale. What did you say?" Old Master Qing yelled as he slammed his walking stick on the ground. The old man was in disbelief at Yun Jian's words. "This old thing is Sister Ji's grandfather?" Just as Old Master Qing was about to think that Yun Jian had found someone to pretend to be Shinji's subordinate so that Shinji could enter the Qing family's ancestral hall, a man who had just jumped down from the courtyard house's roof pulled off the black mask covering his face. It revealed the face of a 17 or 18-year-old Shota boy. Although he looked 17 or 18-year-old, he was actually 25 years old, even older than Shinji. The only reason he called Shinji Sister Ji was because he worked for her. This man with a youthful face was named Huan. Huan looked at Old Master Qing without any trace of politeness and called him Old Thing in front of everyone. When the people around heard how Huan addressed Old Master Qing, they felt a faint wave of shock and fear. The old man was known to be a stern man in the village. If this young man who looked like he was only 17 or 18 years old was just someone Yun Jian found to put on an act for everyone to see, then why waste time talking to this old thing? My sister Ji is invincible in the assassin circle. She's not even willing to enter the Qing family's ancestral hall. If she refuses again, I'll King find someone to bomb their ancestral hall. Huan glanced at Old Master Qing and the others. As he spoke, he lifted the corner of his shirt and took out a revolver. He pointed the muzzle at Old Master Qing and was about to put his finger on the trigger. "This gun isn't fake, is it?" A man from the Qing family who thought he was very smart and had studied guns and books looked at the gun in Huan's hand from afar and couldn't help but speak. "CK, I'll show you the power of this gun." Huan heard that his gun was doubted. He was so angry that he pulled the trigger. Before anyone in the Qing family's gun, Old Master Qing masters Huan's master. Everyone from the Qing family stood rooted to the ground. Gun. It was a real gun. It was a real gun that could shoot bullets. Everyone in the Qing family turned pale with fright as they watched the bullet fly towards Old Master Qing's head at lightning speed. A glint flashed in everyone's eyes. In the next second, the bullet collided with a butterfly knife in midair. The butterfly knife collided with the bullet and the friction between the two created a violent spark in the air. In the next second, the impact was offset and it stopped in midair. Then both of them fell to the ground. Seeing this shocking scene, everyone couldn't stay calm. Everyone looked in the direction of the butterfly knife. Yun Jian walked to the spot where the butterfly knife had collided with the bullet in front of everyone and picked it up from the ground. She turned to the Qing family like nothing had happened and spoke in her usual icy tone. "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Don't waste my time. You can't afford it. Don't think that she's dead. Even if she's an ace assassin, she can't do anything to you. I'm sorry, but I came from the same place as her." Chapter 26. No matter how much the Qing family didn't believe that Shinji was an ace assassin from the world's largest assassin organization, or that Yun Jian said that Shinji's net worth was 39 billion yuan, they had to believe it now. Huan had a gun. A real gun. And Yun Jian said that Huan was Shinji's subordinate. This was enough to prove the authenticity of Shinji's identity. Because no ordinary person could carry a gun at any time. The Qing family did feel lucky for a moment because Shinji had died. After all, he was already dead. No matter how powerful she was in the past, she couldn't do anything to them. But before they could relax, Yun Jian used a butterfly knife to block a bullet. She used a knife. She did things that ordinary people couldn't even dream of. She even stood there and boasted that she came from the same place as Shinji. Then wouldn't Yun Jian's identity be the same as Shinji's? Ha! Huan scoffed when he saw how Yun Jian had saved the stubborn old man of the Qing family with her help. "Go and move the things in." Then, just as Old Master Qing Yunhua and everyone else in the Qing family trembled in fear, Yun Jian's indifferent voice rang out. "Move them in? Move what?" Everyone present was bewildered. But just as she said that, the people who had been waiting outside for a long time came in carrying box after box of funerary items. Ignoring the Qing family, Yun Jian held Shinji's urn and placed the memorial tablet she had prepared for Shinji at the highest spot in the ancestral hall under the Qing family's shocked gazes. Wait. We've discussed it and agreed to place her memorial tablet in the ancestral hall. We'll bury her with glory and record her in the family tree. But the Qing family has its own rules. The highest position in the ancestral hall is reserved for the current head of the Qing family. She's just a direct descendant after all, and she's a girl. Just as Yun Jian took Shinji's tablet and placed it at the highest point in the ancestral hall, a weak middle-aged man's voice sounded. The middle-aged man who spoke weakly was none other than Shinji's biological father and Yunhua's husband, Qing Bing. Qing Bing's status in the Qing family was very low, and because he was the seventh son of the Qing family's old master, he had many sons and could not be taken care of. In addition, Qing Bing himself was weak and incompetent, so he was almost dispensable in the Qing family. This time, Qing Bing was called over by old master Qing. Qing Bing didn't dare to disobey his father. "Oh," Yun Jian responded softly before Qing Bing could finish his sentence. Hearing this, the Qing family members heaved a sigh of relief. Although Shinji's friend had displayed terrifying strength, he shouldn't have reached the point of being unreasonable. In the Qing family's ancestral hall, the highest tablet had always been reserved for the current head of the Qing family. This meant that old Master Qing would only have the right to place his tablet at the highest point after he passed away. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian was going to compromise, Yun Jian's expression changed. Yun Jian reached out to take Shinji's tablet. She tried to take it down from the highest point. Seeing this, everyone smiled in satisfaction. However, just as her hand was about to touch Shinji's memorial tablet that she had placed at the highest point, her slender and well-defined hand turned abruptly. Bang, bang, bang. Then a series of bangs rang out. Everyone saw that apart from Shinji's tablet at the highest point in the ancestral hall, all the other tablets of the Qing family's ancestors had been smashed to the ground by Yun Jian. Just as everyone from the Qing family was stunned, Yi Zichen's expression changed. Yun Jian's cold voice suddenly rang out. "Since these rules were set by your ancestors, then I'll burn them on behalf of the Qing family. I'm taking this place." Chapter 26-27. Yun Jian had always been a woman of her words. Once she spoke, she spilled the oil on the memorial tablet in the ancestral hall and a lighter appeared in her hand. Without even looking, she flicked it open with the thumb of her right hand and was about to toss it on the floor as she spoke. "No. Don't burn it. Don't burn it." As the lighter in Yun Jian's hand fell to the ground, old Master Qing lunged forward at once. Although old Master Qing was stubborn when it came to favoring boys over girls, he cared a lot about his ancestors' memorial tablets. His body, which was already in his 70s, flew forward almost immediately and reached out to grab the lighter that was quickly falling to the ground and igniting the flame. Ignoring the burn on his hand, old Master Qing grabbed the lighter and threw it out of the house. The lighter, which had no combustible material, quickly went out. Old Master Qing's hand was slightly burned, but he didn't care about it. Instead, he looked at Yun Jian, his lips trembling. 3 minutes later, old Master Qing had no choice. He waved his hand and gave his final answer. "If you want her memorial tablet to be placed at the highest place, then so be it. After all, our Qing family has wronged her." Old Master Qing didn't have a conscience. He was just being threatened by Yun Jian. "Old Master. Dad. Grandpa." As soon as old Master Qing finished speaking, everyone in the Qing family, including the servants who worked for the Qing family, old Master Qing's son and daughter-in-law, as well as his grandchildren and juniors, hurriedly spoke out in an attempt to stop old Master Qing's plan. "All right. That's enough. Don't say any more. It's decided." The moment everyone in the Qing family started to retort, old Master Qing shouted loudly and interrupted everyone. Shinji's memorial tablet was successfully placed in the Qing family's ancestral hall. As an ancient feudal family, this was the first time in the history of the Qing family that a junior who wasn't the Qing grandmother could be placed in the ancestral hall and even be recorded in the family tree. Other than Yun Jian's burial items, Yun Jian followed Shinji's instructions from an Hun many years ago and buried her in the most ordinary way. Like I said, once a person dies, there is nothing left. He turned into a pile of ash as if he had never appeared. This was the fate of a secret agent assassin. You would live in glory while you were alive. Dead. If it wasn't for Yun Jian calling Huan and the others, no one would have known about Shinji's death. It was like a firework exploding in the dark night, only for a moment of glory. "Shinji, I hope that you can be reincarnated and live a normal life. Yun Jian stood in front of Shinji's grave and burned a thick book page by page. This book was a plan made by a group of children to escape when Yun Jian was in Anhan. But in the end, with Shinji's departure, Yun Jian was the only assassin left who had joined Anhan with her. The winner would survive while the weak would be eliminated. Those who couldn't keep up with the world would be thrown into the abyss by the secular world. This was the order of the assassin agent. Looking at the thick booklet burning page by page, Yun Jian felt like she was back when she first joined the assassin organization. All the kids gathered together to discuss strategies. However, it was only that one time. All the children had discussed a strategy together. In a survival game where you had to kill your friends and teammates to survive, everyone had forgotten their original intention. To them, death might be the true release. The moment the book was burned to ashes, Yun Jian turned and left without looking back. Come. Wonderful book house. Chapter 26-28. Before leaving the Qing family, Yun Jian had said that as long as she was alive, if the Qing family dared to touch Shinji's memorial tablet or go back on their word, she would definitely take action. Since Yun Jian had said that before, the Qing family naturally didn't dare to refute her. After all, Yun Jian's identity was very likely to be the same as Shinji's, or even more powerful than Shinji. Country J. Country J was a small country. The people here didn't live a rich life. Because of the bad geography, there were often floods and droughts. Even some of the surrounding powerful countries could easily take over Japan with a wave of their hand, but they couldn't be bothered to do so. This was because Japan was just a small country, and its geographical environment was not attractive at all. But it was a country like this that had the headquarters of the International Assassin website and most of Shinji's forces. The International Assassin website was a platform for assassins to communicate with their employers and accept missions. There must be someone controlling such a website behind the scenes. And its headquarters was in such a backward country. Moreover, Shinji was very close to the boss of the International Assassin website, so all of Shinji's forces were in Country J. Although the Soul Eater organization wasn't in Country J, to Shinji they weren't that powerful. The money Shinji had earned by risking his life for missions was all in Country J, distributed among his assets in every corner of the country. Headquarters of the International Assassin website. There were no tall buildings in the surrounding area. Only this building, which was at least 30 stories tall, was exceptionally eye-catching. Here, many elites and talents from all over the world worked in this 30-story building. In the conference room, the boss of the International Assassin website stood in the middle of the room, holding a document in his hand. Shinji is dead. The boss whistled as he spoke. The death of an assassin or agent was very normal for the headquarters of the International Assassin website. The death of an assassin or agent meant that her era was over. As mentioned before, no matter how powerful an agent was, once they were found dead, their past would be forgotten. No one would remember her. Even worse. Boss, don't you have a good relationship with Shinji? Don't you feel bad that she's dead? Someone raised an eyebrow, looking very happy. I feel bad? I don't see you guys feeling any heartache. The grand boss raised his hand from the table. He adjusted his tie and walked to the side. Shinji trusted me a lot when she was alive. All her assets and businesses are in Country J, the boss said in front of his subordinates. Boss, what do you mean? Someone below was drooling. He licked his saliva and looked at the final boss expectantly. Regardless of their past achievements, they will still turn to dust after death. As usual, we'll take everything. The boss snapped his fingers. As he spoke, he opened the door of the conference room and walked out. Pack your things. We're going to fight for Shinji's fortune. I'm sure there are already a lot of people internationally eyeing this fat piece of meat that Shinji left behind. First come, first served. We can't fall behind. After the boss finished speaking, he opened the door of the conference room. However, just as the final boss opened the conference room door, everyone suddenly saw a teenage girl standing in front of them like a ghost. The young girl's figure was beautiful. She stood in front of everyone, and when she saw them leave, she raised her head slightly. Under her bangs, the pair of black eyes were so sharp that it was frightening. You are? The boss asked. However, the young girl spoke indifferently and said something that shocked everyone. Number 1 on the International Assassin chart, slaying God. Chapter 26-29. When they heard Yun Jian reveal her identity, the group of executives from the International Secret Service Assassin website narrowed their eyes. An unnatural look of surprise flashed across their faces. Slaying God. The final boss glanced at Yun Jian from the corner of his eyes and asked with an unnatural expression. Although the International Secret Service Assassin website was a communication platform that was tied directly to the Secret Service assassins, they did not know any of the Secret Service assassins and Secret Service assassins who accepted missions from their employers on the website. Secret Service assassins and Secret Service assassins were high-risk occupations. Sometimes, even if you had met them, you would put yourself in an abyss of danger. The International Secret Service Assassin website was a platform for employers and Secret Service assassins to get to know each other and make deals. The staff on the website, including the executives, were the final boss and the group of people standing behind him. They earned a cut of the Secret Service assassins' earnings when they accepted missions from the International Secret Service Assassin website. In other words, the more missions the Secret Service assassins accepted on the website, the higher the bounty and the more they earned. As the #1 Secret Service assassin in the world, Slaying God, although the final boss and his group received a small cut of the bounty from Yun Jian, the International Secret Service Assassin website would still earn a lot even if they only received 0.1% of the bounty from Yun Jian's mission, which started at $100 million. Therefore, to the International Secret Service Assassin website, Yun Jian was undoubtedly the biggest crocodile on the website. Cough. However, the final boss reacted quickly. He coughed softly and looked at Yun Jian. He immediately curtsied to Yun Jian with the most standard posture. His attitude was extremely respectful. Is there anything that you need us to do personally? Country J's capital, downtown area. In a bar with red lights and green lights. The colorful lights in the bar were so eerie that it made one's eyes blur. The people dancing wildly in the flashing lights seemed to be on steroids as they shook their heads wildly and cheered. Among the crowd, no one noticed a 19-year-old teenage girl from Country Z walking to a corner of the bar with 2 bottles of hard liquor mixed by a mixer. There were more than 10 adult men in their 30s and 40s sitting in the corner of the bar. All of them had creepy tattoos on their hands, faces, and the parts of their bodies that were exposed outside of their singlets. The girl with the hard liquor came to the bar. The dozen or so adult men in their 30s and 40s were still talking without restraint. Big brother, when are we going to make a move? Among them, there was a young man in his 20s who looked impatient. He hugged an enchanting woman in her 20s who was sitting on his lap and spoke to a man with a tattoo on his chest. What's the rush? What should be ours will definitely be ours. Shinji is dead. In this world, aside from Mad Dragon who came from Anhun with that woman, and a few people who have been in seclusion for many years, there's no one else who has the ability to compete with us. The middle-aged man, who was called Big Brother, had a cigarette in his mouth and 2 beauties in his arms. As he spoke, the middle-aged man patted the buttocks of the blonde beauty sitting on his right. He propped himself up and narrowed his eyes. Also, I just talked to the people from the International Secret Service Assassin website. This time we'll work together to seize Shinji's assets. Believe me, this is something that can be obtained with the flip of a hand. As he spoke, the middle-aged man reached out and grabbed the breasts of the beauties on his left and right. His expression was uninterested. Are there no newcomers here? It's always the same people. There's no novelty at all. Just as the middle-aged man frowned, he suddenly saw a 19-year-old girl walk over with 2 bottles of hard liquor. The words that came out of the girl's mouth made the middle-aged man gulp hard. Excuse me, these are the whiskey and hard liquor that the gentleman ordered. Would you like me to fill the glasses for the gentleman? Chapter 2630. Page 1/1. The sweet voice had a hint of a young girl's voice, as though it was the sound of nature, causing people to feel as though they were drowning in it. Even the middle-aged man who was groping the 2 beauties and impatiently muttering that he wanted new goods stared at her. Newcomer? The middle-aged man glanced at the young girl and placed his elbows on his thighs, looking at the young girl with a pitiful expression. The young girl blinked her large eyes, pinched the tray in her hands, took 2 steps back and pursed her lips. Yes, I am. The middle-aged man whistled. The blonde beauty sitting on the right side of the middle-aged man rolled her eyes. She just remembered that the young girl came to her bar to apply for a job, saying that she could do anything because her family was too poor. Thinking that the young girl was inexperienced, the blonde beauty touched her face and hurriedly suggested to the middle-aged man, Big brother, her name is Xiao Qing, she is new to the bar. After saying this, the blonde beauty stretched out her sexy thighs, then raised her leg to the middle-aged man's thigh and rubbed a certain part of the middle-aged man. Then, she gently placed her lips that were redder than a monkey's but beside the middle-aged man's ear, blew a breath and said softly, We have already asked this girl, based on her appearance she should still be a virgin. After saying this, the blonde beauty flipped her blonde hair and looked at the young girl with her arms crossed. In the bar there were no companions to speak of, there were only benefits. Some people, for themselves, would use underhanded means to betray their companions. Some incomparably pure young girls, after entering the bar, would meet all kinds of people, even if they had a good nature. After experiencing some betrayal and torture, they would still be led astray. The blonde beauty secretly interrupted the middle-aged man, no one else heard it. After saying this, the middle-aged man crossed his arms and looked at the young girl. "All right, pour the wine." Seeing this, the young girl placed the tray on the table and poured wine for the men one by one. One of the men wanted to reach out and slap the young girl's butt, but the young girl dodged without any flaws. "Xiaoqing, come quickly, come to Big Brother's side." The blonde beauty beckoned to the young girl. The rest of the middle-aged men and the people sitting by the side had already drunk the wine poured by the young girl. The blonde beauty beckoned to the girl and the girl immediately followed her. At this moment, the middle-aged man picked up the cup of wine that the young girl had poured for him. He stared at the young girl, intending to drink the wine in the cup in one gulp. However, the moment the middle-aged man placed the wine cup at the tip of his nose and took a light sniff, he suddenly pushed away the blonde beauty who was leaning on him. He picked up the pistol at his waist and shot at the girl. At the same time he shouted, "Don't drink this wine. This woman drugged him." As he spoke, the middle-aged man fired a shot at the young girl. When the blonde beauty saw this, she and the other beauty covered their ears at the same time. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. However, just when everyone present was so frightened that their faces turned pale, thinking that the young girl holding the tray would definitely die on the spot, the young girl narrowed her eyes deeply. In the next second, she moved sideways to the middle-aged man's side. She wrapped her hand around the middle-aged man's wrist and locked it. She leaned to the side and dodged the bullet shot by the middle-aged man. At the same time, she controlled the handle of the middle-aged man's gun and forcefully slammed the muzzle of the gun into the middle-aged man's group of subordinates who had already drunk the wine and instantly fainted. Bang! The middle-aged man's subordinate was shot in the head by the middle-aged man's gun in his sleep. This shot should have been shot at Yun Jian's body. And this move only took Yun Jian a short second. In the next second, she wrapped her hand around the middle-aged man's wrist and ruthlessly smashed his wrist joint with one hand. Her other hand, at a speed of 0.5 seconds, directly snatched the middle-aged man's gun from his hand. She lifted her leg and directly kicked the middle-aged man to the ground. The golden-haired beauty, as well as the hostess sitting beside her, were all stunned. They didn't expect that the weak young girl who came to apply for the job yesterday, who looked like she had just entered society, was actually. However, this wasn't the end. Bang bang bang. A few gunshots rang out at the entrance. Then, a group of people rushed in, led by the boss of the International Assassin platform. When the middle-aged man saw the boss, he immediately called for help. But before he could call for the boss timidly stood in front of Yun Jian and said with a trembling voice, "Are you planning to take all of Shinji's assets? Here you go. Here you go. Take it all. As for the rest of the bastards who want to snatch your assets, the International Assassin platform will definitely hunt them down and kill them all for you." Chapter 2631. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation International Secret Assassin Website. These words represented the absolute power and status they held in Country J. Country J's economy was not developed and its geographical location was bad. It was a small country that could easily conquer a powerful country but was too lazy to even make a move due to its bad geographical location. Hence, Shinji's influence and the International Secret Assassin website were undoubtedly more prominent here. Now that Shinji was dead, the International Secret Assassin website was the one with the highest status. What was going on now though? The boss of the International Secret Assassin website was actually speaking to Yun Jian. Not only did he donate all of Shinji's wealth to Yun Jian, but he also said that he would help Yun Jian hunt down the bastard who wanted to fight with Yun Jian for Shinji's wealth. When the gunshot rang out, the blonde and the other beauties in the bar had already shrunk into a corner. However, at this moment, the golden-haired beauty's heart was in a state of shock. Who was this girl? Was she not a poor person who came to apply for a job? Why would she poison her brother? Moreover, she had such terrifying skills. She even had the ability to make the International Secret Assassin website's boss bow down to her. while the blonde and everyone else in the bar, including the middle-aged man who was stepped on by Yun Jian, were perplexed. Yun Jian suddenly spoke to the final boss again, causing everyone to be shocked. Donate all of Shinji's assets to needy children in need in Shinji's name. Not a single cent less. Kill anyone who disobeys my order. This was Shinji's wish and Yun Jian's plan. With that, Yun Jian turned and left without even sparing a glance at the crowd. It was as if she had never appeared. Country Z Longmen City. When everything was over, Yun Jian returned to the place where the gears of fate began to turn. She brought the sandalwood box, wooden fan and wooden hairpin back with her. The moment she entered the house, she saw Qin Yiru playing with the children on the sponge mat downstairs. Xiao Jian, you're back? Have you eaten? There's still rice at home. Do you want me to heat it up for you? Qin Yiru asked. No need, I've eaten. Yun Jian shook her head and paused before asking Qin Yiru, Just as she spoke, Qin Yiru pointed upstairs as if she knew that Yun Jian would ask where Ce was and replied with a smile, she's upstairs. Yun Jian answered and went upstairs. Just as she entered the room Yun Jian house Yun Jian. It was only after a brief moment of intimacy that Yun Jian showed the 3 divine weapons she brought back this time to Ce for him to take a look. Also, Shi Lin's translation of Ji Su Li Yun. Translation on Ce, to Yun Translation 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 Yun Translation Lin Lu Translation After placing the 3 divine artifacts together, Ce packed up and planned to hide them in a secluded spot. Just as Ce was about to put the 3 divine artifacts away, a beam of light flashed from the sandalwood box and refracted into a corner of the room where the curtains were drawn. Then, something surprising happened. After the 3 divine artifacts were placed together, a ball of powerful spiritual energy spiraled out of the sandalwood box and solidified, circling above the room and at the corner of the curtains. Then a blurry figure appeared in front of Yun Jian and Ce. And the owner of that projection was none other than the owner of that phantom. Xingfeng. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2632. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. On the eve of the big battle, he retched again. End 1. The illusory figure was like a high-tech projection in a sci-fi movie. When Yun Jian and Ce saw it, they looked at each other and stared at the figure that was conjured in front of them. At this moment, Xing Feng looked like he was in a deep sleep. His eyes were tightly shut and he didn't move at all. But the moment the projection projected him, his long eyelashes flickered. The next moment, his eyes, which looked like they had been in a deep sleep for half his life, slowly opened. What entered his vision was a young man in his early 20s. He looked very similar to Ce, like a handsome young man who had walked out of a manga. His skin was even more delicate than a baby's, as if it could be broken with a flick of a finger. But because he had inherited Ce's excellent genes, his delicate skin didn't lack the charm of a man, nor did he look like a fake man. It could be said that because he had inherited Yun Jian and Ce's strengths, Xing Feng's looks had reached the point where it could shock the world at first glance. When Xing Feng saw Yun Jian and Ce's faces, he became excited and wanted to walk towards them. Sha. But just as Xing Feng was about to walk towards Yun Jian and Ce, the anklet on his feet stopped him from moving forward. Father. Mother. Xing Feng shouted at Yun Jian and Ce. As he spoke, tears of sincerity flowed down from the corners of his eyes. They didn't need to look to know that this was the little fellow who had grown up, Si-Wan. When they saw that Xing Feng's anklet had been shackled, Yun Jian and Ce's faces darkened even more. Xing Feng wanted to say something but he suddenly thought about it. He didn't have much time to reminisce. In order to prevent his future parents from making the same mistakes, Xing Feng shouted at Yun Jian and Ce, Yuan Yi must have known about this. I'm sure Yuan Xing has already told you about my identity. I was captured by a mysterious person, and I'm currently locked up in a place with an unknown location. You must have used the 3 magical artifacts that I left behind to see me. This conversation can only last for 10 minutes, so I'll make it short. 10 minutes later, Xing Feng disappeared. Seeing that, Yun Jian's heart tightened. She clenched her fists and looked at Ce. Ce nodded slightly at her. From the conversation just now, Yun Jian and Ce had already grasped the exact location where the mysterious person had locked Xing Feng up. This was going to be a battle of life and death, but for the sake of her child, Yun Jian had to go. Whether she could come back alive was still an unknown. Yun Jian and Ce agreed to go to the battlefield 3 days later. This time they must eradicate the mysterious person from this world. On the second day, Yun Jian was called out by Qin Sini. She was about to leave. This time she did not know if she could come back alive. In spite of it, Yun Jian still went to Qin Sini's appointment. Jian, what should I do? My family found out that Xiaofeng and I are dating. They want me to break up with him, Qin Sini told Yun Jian with a troubled expression. As she spoke, she took a bite of the drumstick in her hand. Looking at Yun Jian's troubled expression and silence, Qin Sini was stunned before she passed a drumstick to Yun Jian. Jian, do you want some? Yun Jian, who was frowning, suddenly felt nauseous when she caught a whiff of the drumstick Qin Sini passed to her. She covered her mouth and turned away to retch again. P.S. That's all for today. Good night, everyone. Wax, did you see the title? It's almost over. Oh, __. Oh. Chapter 2633. Jian, what's wrong? Does your stomach hurt? Seeing that Yun Jian had turned her head to the side abruptly like she was agitated by something and started retching, Qin Sini stood up quickly and strode to Yun Jian's seat, patting Yun Jian's back with a worried frown. I'm fine. Yun Jian took Qin Sini's hand, but her heart skipped a beat. Ever since she gave birth to the little boy and girl, she knew how to use contraception when they did it together. She was no longer the inexperienced little girl who knew how to protect herself. She would not repeat the mistake of being tricked by the mysterious person because she did not know that she was pregnant. Jian, you're not pregnant again, are you? Qin Sini suddenly recalled Yun Jian's symptoms. Qin Sini was studying medicine in university. Although she had yet to graduate, she would have chosen this major for nothing if she did not know the general knowledge as a future doctor. Yun Jian's hands froze when she heard Qin Sini's words. Qin Sini waved at Yun Jian as if she had forgotten her worries. She pulled Yun Jian's hand with a smile and pressed her index and middle fingers on Yun Jian's wrist like an experienced Chinese physician, pinching the joints of Yun Jian's wrist gently. Let me take a look. Your pulse is jumping non-stop. I think it's very likely that you're pregnant. Jian, you can't go wrong trusting me. I'm from a medical school after all. The scene changed to the outpatient room of Longmen City People's Hospital. Your symptoms are due to the oily food you've been eating recently. You must have swallowed it without chewing carefully, right? Write more bland things these few days. Remember, you must chew and swallow slowly when you eat next time. Here is the medical record. You can prescribe the medicine now. The doctor in the outpatient room, who was wearing a pair of heavy, thick and cumbersome glasses, reached out his right hand and gently lifted his glasses frame. He pushed the medical record book to Yun Jian with his left hand. Qin Sini pursed her lips as she stood at the side, pursing her lips. She had some skills. Qin Sini wanted to inherit the old profession passed down from her ancestors, so she chose to major in medicine. But based on the current situation, she had clearly learned the ancient Chinese medicine techniques from her grandfather, so why couldn't she figure it out? Cough, cough, cough. Of course, it was better not to let others know about this kind of miscalculation and disgrace. After all, she was determined to become a famous doctor in the future. Qin Sini and Yun Jian took the medicine and walked out of the hospital. These days, Yun Jian indeed had no appetite, so when she ate, she would wolf down her food and finish it carelessly. It was only when Ci was around that she would chew slowly. As soon as he walked out of the hospital, he saw two people walking towards him. It was Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen. Sini, why are you in the hospital? Are you hurt? Zhang Xiaofeng asked Qin Sini loudly just as he walked over. They had not seen each other for a few days as they were forced to separate by their families. It's not me, it's Jian. Qin Sini mumbled. Are you okay? Ling Yichen, who stood beside Zhang Xiaofeng, scratched his head and asked in a friendly manner as a friend. I'm fine. Yun Jian shook her head. Jian, you must take good care of yourself. The doctor said that if you don't take good care of your stomach, you'll have major problems in the future. Qin Sini looked at Yun Jian worriedly. Just as Qin Sini finished her words, however, she saw a slender and handsome man walking over from the opposite side of the road. He was still incomparably handsome, but at this moment, there was a trace of gloominess on his handsome face. It was Ci. When Ci walked over with his long strides, he seemed to have heard some important news as he grabbed Yun Jian's wrist and dragged her away with a look that those who did not know better would think that he was a domestic abuser who was about to abuse his wife. His action startled two elderly people who were about to walk out of the hospital while supporting each other in their hospital gowns. They rushed over to hold Ci back. Hey, young man. Let's talk nicely. You can't hit a woman. Let go. Chapter 2634. It was no wonder that they misunderstood Ce. They were both wearing hospital uniforms and were about to go out to get some sun. Ce was emitting a strong aura of violence from head to toe. He looked as if he was really going to commit domestic violence on the streets. Moreover, the two elders had lived almost their entire lives. They had seen a lot more things than ordinary people. They had seen many cases of husband and wife fighting after marriage and the husband abusing his wife. The two elders were also good people. The moment they saw Ce grab Yunjian's wrist and walk away, they thought that Ce was going to commit domestic violence on Yunjian. The grandfather of the two elders thought that Ce was going to hit Yunjian. He was originally supporting the old lady, but after receiving the old lady's signal, he staggered over and tried to pull Ce away. Young man, a man must learn to be tolerant. Look at how beautiful your wife is. Can you bear to hit her? Listen to me. Live happily with your wife. If you're unhappy, talk to each other. You can't hit her. The grandfather's words not only made Ce's eyes darken, but even Qin Sini, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen couldn't help but laugh. Of course I can. Ce raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled wickedly. However, when the grandfather saw his expression, he thought that Ce was really going to commit domestic violence on Yunjian. You can't, young man, you can't. The grandfather was afraid that Ce would really hit Yunjian, so he quickly reached out his dry and old hand to pull Ce back. Before the old man could extend his hand, however, Ce had extended his long bony hand that was exquisite and beautiful enough to make a handcon scream and swung it at Yunjian's cheek. The moment his hand was about to touch Yunjian's cheek, Ce's hand suddenly circled around Yunjian's head and pressed against the back of Yunjian's head. Then, in front of everyone, he bent down slightly and placed his head in front of Yunjian's face. Without saying anything, he kissed Yunjian's little mouth heavily. He even made a smacking sound. This sound scared the old man so much that he took 2 steps back. The old lady's heart skipped a beat. He only kissed Yunjian's little mouth for 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, Ce grabbed Yunjian's wrist again in a position that was mistaken for domestic violence. He said something that sounded angry but also seemed to have a deeper meaning. If she doesn't take good care of herself, I can do it myself. I'll teach her a lesson. Who in their right mind would talk about this kind of small train and use it as an excuse to show off? Ce's words scared the old couple so much that they almost had a heart attack. Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini froze on the spot. By the time everyone reacted, Ce had already walked away with Yunjian. For the next 2 days, Ce kept watch over Yunjian, making her chew and swallow her food slowly. If she didn't comply, in the bedroom on the 2nd floor, the little girl and the little girl were taken away by Qin Yiru. Yunjian was sitting on Ce's lap and being fed by Ce mouthful by mouthful. Chew more. If I find out that something's wrong with your body again, as Ce spoke, he thrust his body forward. Yunjian couldn't hold it in and almost cried out. However, the curtains on the 2nd floor were tightly shut. In front of the desk, Yunjian was sitting on Ce's lap. That wasn't the point. The point was that both of them were naked and he actually used such a shameful method to make her eat slowly. I'm done eating. Let me down. But I'm not full yet. Chapter 2635. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Page 1/1. Yunjian admitted that if anyone knew about this, she would probably die of embarrassment. He actually thought of such a way to make her chew her rice slowly. Yunjian couldn't even see through Ce. Where was his usual aloofness? Where did he go? Why did he? The day was still long, but at this time and place it was extremely beautiful. On the 3rd day, Yunjian and Ce went to Qin Yiru's house first. They took a look at the little guy and the little girl, kissed their foreheads and left quietly while the 2 little guys were still sleeping. Just as Yunjian and Ce were about to get into Ce's Lamborghini, a magnetic male voice sounded behind them. Is it convenient for you to join us? The 2 of them turned around and saw Yuan Xen, who was wearing a ghost mask, standing beside the Lamborghini. Yuan Xen lightly patted the Lamborghini and smiled at Yunjian and Ce. Yunjian tilted her head and leaned towards the back seat of the Lamborghini, pursing her lips. Get in. The biggest difference between Yunjian's Ferrari and the Lamborghini was that the Ferrari didn't have a single back seat. Even though the Lamborghini didn't have a backseat door, the back seat was still a little narrow. For people like the little guy and the little girl sitting in the back seat of the Lamborghini, other than having less space to move around compared to a normal car, there was no other difference. However, for someone like Yuan Xen, who was 1. 8 meters tall, sitting in the backseat of the Lamborghini, he became. Yuan Xian's body was curled up and he couldn't even straighten his back. He was like those acrobats who were put into a big box. Other than being able to move his hands and feet, his neck was crooked when he was put into the box. His neck was crooked and he couldn't move at all. Imagine a man who was 1.8 meters tall, wearing a ghost mask, squeezing into the backseat of an indescribably narrow sports car. What kind of scene would that be? Wait, are you going to let me sit in this car for more than 20 hours? Yuan Xian saw that he was sitting in the backseat of the Lamborghini and couldn't stretch his arms. He was stunned for a moment, then he seemed to resist. I'll get out of the car and find a car that can drive to follow you. Yuan Xian rolled his eyes. Even though the Lamborghini had a backseat because the structure of the Lamborghini translation, the backseat wasn't suitable because of the design of the car. The translation. If Yuan Xian wanted to get out, he would step on the driver's seat and the passenger's seat. Once you're in the car, you're not allowed to get out. Yun Jian, who was sitting in the passenger's seat, smiled evilly. As if responding to Yun Jian's words, Ce locked the door, and the car sped to the road at the fastest speed. In the next second he disappeared from where he stood. Only Yuan Xian was left to roar in exasperation. No wonder my father said that you two are simply demons. Demons. Ce drove for more than 20 hours, overtaking countless cars on the way, and finally arrived at the destination. Yuan Xian's back was hunched when he got out of the car. It's here. Yun Jian pointed to a forest on the side of the road and said. Since they had arrived at the destination, Yuan Xian's eyes began to darken. I don't know how to get there, but there must be someone strange nearby. As long as we find the person, we can find the way to the future. Yes, they were going to the future world. Because the mysterious man came here from the future world. Translator, Transin editor, Transin. Chapter 2636. Originally, they were still dubious about the mysterious man's origin. However, after talking to Xing Feng, Yun Jian and Ce finally understood. They understood what even Yuan Jin did not know. This matter was very complicated. It was not a coincidence that Xing Feng and Yuan Jin could come here from the future world. After all, Yun Jian and Ce were so powerful, but they could not travel through time. Yuan Jin could open the space-time door because there was a strange power in the depths of this forest. As long as you had a little bit of spiritual power, you could open the space-time door. Only the powerful could control the space-time you wanted to go to. Xing Feng had strong spiritual energy, so he was able to control himself from losing control. However, Yun Jian and Ce could not find the mysterious man's hiding place because the mysterious man was not from this world. Like Xing Feng, he came from the future. However, before the mysterious man became a mysterious man, he was just a very ordinary person. In other words, in the future world, the mysterious man traveled to the era before the dominator of the deity continent was born. No matter how many years had passed, he could always return to the original time of the future world. If one wanted to say that Yun Jian and Ce could find the mysterious man in the present world and kill him before he became a mysterious man, it was indeed possible. If they could find him in the present world and kill him before he became a mysterious man, then everything about the mysterious man traveling through time and space to the deity continent and what happened later would not have happened. However, the mysterious man was very cunning. He seemed to have known that his identity would be exposed, so he always showed up in a black robe. No matter how powerful Yun Jian and Ce were, they could not find out what kind of existence the mysterious man was on Earth before he became a mysterious man. Therefore, in order to find the root of everything, they had to go to the future world. Only then could they solve all the mysteries. And kill the mysterious man completely. I'll go ask around and see if anyone who knows where to go in and out of this forest has noticed anything unusual. Yuan Lin reached out his hand and shook his head from left to right. The bones on his pillow made a cracking sound. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. Hearing this, Yuan Jin walked to the nearby village. This was a foreign country, a border area that did not belong to any country. The people who lived here lived in tribes and they all lived in thatched huts. There was no other name for this forest. For the time being, it was called the Spacetime Forest. 15 minutes later, Yuan Jin came back with the residents of a nearby village. When the residents of this village arrived, the village chief said, "Something strange is indeed happening here. Oh, the forest near us. It's been very safe since ancient times. There are no wild beasts and everyone goes into the forest to chop firewood. But last week, Hui went into the forest and never came back. We felt that something was wrong, so we sent another 3 people to look for him, but there was no news. They all went missing. Everyone thought that this was a punishment bestowed upon our village by the forest god's wrath. When the village chief said this, his whole body was trembling violently. But as soon as he finished speaking, a villager suddenly ran out from the side and shouted loudly in a frightened voice, "What's wrong? Village chief. I found a Hui and the others near the forest. They were all covered in blood and were left on the outskirts of the forest." Chapter 2637. Originally, they were still dubious about the mysterious man's origin. However, after talking to Xing Feng, Yun Jian and Ce finally understood. They understood what even Yuan Jin did not know. This matter was very complicated. It was not a coincidence that Xing Feng and Yuan Jin could come here from the future world. After all, Yun Jian and Ce were so powerful, but they could not travel through time. Yuan Jin could open the space-time door because there was a strange power in the depths of this forest. As long as you had a little bit of spiritual power, you could open the space-time door. Only the powerful could control the space-time you wanted to go to. Xing Feng had strong spiritual energy, so he was able to control himself from losing control. However, Yun Jian and Ce could not find the mysterious man's hiding place because the mysterious man was not from this world. Like Xing Feng, he came from the future. However, before the mysterious man became a mysterious man, he was just a very ordinary person. In other words, in the future world, the mysterious man traveled to the era before the dominator of the deity continent was born. No matter how many years had passed, he could always return to the original time of the future world. If one wanted to say that Yun Jian and Ce could find the mysterious man in the present world and kill him before he became a mysterious man, it was indeed possible. If they could find him in the present world and kill him before he became a mysterious man, then everything about the mysterious man traveling through time and space to the deity continent and what happened later would not have happened. However, the mysterious man was very cunning. He seemed to have known that his identity would be exposed, so he always showed up in a black robe. No matter how powerful Yun Jian and Ce were, they could not find out what kind of existence the mysterious man was on Earth before he became a mysterious man. Therefore, in order to find the root of everything, they had to go to the future world. Only then could they solve all the mysteries and kill the mysterious man completely. I'll go ask around and see if anyone who knows where to go in and out of this forest has noticed anything unusual. Yuan Lin reached out his hand and shook his head from left to right. The bones on his pillow made a crisp cracking sound. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. Hearing this, Yuan Jin walked to the nearby village. This was a foreign country, a border area that did not belong to any country. The people who lived here lived in tribes and they all lived in thatched huts. There was no other name for this forest. For the time being, it was called the Spacetime Forest. 15 minutes later, Yuan Jin came back with the residents of a nearby village. When the residents of this village arrived, the village chief said, "Something strange is indeed happening here. Oh, the forest near us. It's been very safe since ancient times. There are no wild beasts and everyone goes into the forest to chop firewood. But last week, Hui went into the forest and never came back. We felt that something was wrong, so we sent another 3 people to look for him, but there was no news. They all went missing. Everyone thought that this was a punishment bestowed upon our village by the forest god's wrath." When the village chief said this, his whole body was trembling violently. But as soon as he finished speaking, a villager suddenly ran out from the side and shouted loudly in a frightened voice, "Brother Zhao, you've been killed. Village chief. I found a Hui and the others near the forest. They were covered in blood and left outside the forest." Come. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2638. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Page 1/1. A group of fashionably dressed young boys and girls with hair dyed in various colors gathered together by the roadside, drinking milk tea, dating openly, going out to play and singing in the KTV. This group of fashionably dressed young boys and girls chatted with each other and came to a large KTV. They asked for a large private room and sang happily for 5 hours. Until 6 o'clock in the evening. Today was New Year's Eve. Most people would stay at home to enjoy the warmth of family. Or like this group of young boys and girls, they would go to the KTV with some good friends and play all night long before going home in the middle of the night. Some girls even didn't go home and stayed at their boyfriends' houses for the night. Compared to 2004, the boys and girls of this era were many times happier. Most of their families were not poor, so students who went to college were especially fun. At a certain university, A girl who was dressed like someone from the 2000s and had a black mask on her face walked out of the university. Apart from her perfect figure, she looked very ordinary. At the entrance of the university, a man who was 185 meters tall and wore matching outfits with a girl, but he wore a cap that covered his face. When he saw the girl walking out of the university, he came over to hold her hand and left the university in a low-key manner. Yes, the girl was Yunjian. The man was C. They found the spacetime tunnel to the future in the spacetime forest and opened the spacetime door to the present 15 years later. That was 2019. I didn't find any unusual students in the school these 2 days, Yunjian said. She meant that she didn't find the mysterious man in the school. Now Yunjian and Ce were facing a very serious problem. In this world they had no money or power. In other words, they didn't have the money or the power to investigate the hiding place of the mysterious man. They learned from Yuan Lin that in the future world Yunjian and Ce were dead. He died 3 years ago in the battle with the mysterious man in 2016. After Yunjian and Ce died together with the mysterious man in the future world, all the forces fell apart in an instant. Without their masters, all the forces began to fall. Kosha mercenaries and Hun group, and those forces led by Yunjian and Ce were all divided by the international tycoons. That was the situation in the future. But Yunjian and Ce came back. Since they came to the future world, they must change the situation and kill the mysterious man with their own hands. In this world, Xingfeng gave up his life and came back to the past, to change the fate of Yunjian and Ce, who died with the mysterious man in the future. He wanted to change Yunjian and Ce. Yun would not let her son see Xingfeng. She would send the mysterious man to hell in person. Ce covered his face with his cap and held Yunjian's hand. When they came to a fork in the road, they were blocked by a group of people with arms akimbo, as if they were going to fight. Ce didn't want to cause trouble, so he took Yunjian to a detour. Who would have thought that the group would block Yunjian and Ce again? The leader of the group looked at Yunjian from head to toe and spoke like a ruffian. "You're right. Girl, I heard that you dress very shabbily at school. You've become famous in just 2 days. People in the school are talking about you like crazy. Hurry up, take off your mask and let me see what you look like." Translator, Hengyi Translations Editor. Chapter 2639. Part 1. Page 1/1. The leader of the group shook his legs. It was obvious that he wasn't a student of this university. He was most likely a hooligan. He didn't belong to any gangs. Therefore, this ruffian boy would at most drag his buddies along with him. Usually, when he was unhappy with someone, he would get into a group fight with them to show off his power. Above the black mask, Yunjian's sharp eyes flashed slightly. Seeing that Yunjian and Ce didn't say anything, the leader of the group laughed cruelly and walked over to forcefully pull off Yunjian's mask. But just as he reached out his hand, halfway through, a slender palm blocked his path. Immediately after, 2 kacha sounds of the bones in his palms breaking could be clearly heard. "Ow ow ow." The ruffian boy screamed in pain. F***CK. Are you all just going to watch me get bullied? Go. F***CK. The hooligan's wrist was grabbed by Ce, and the bones in his hand were broken. As he howled like a pig, he called for his buddies to come over and help. As soon as the boy shouted, more than 10 boys around him were enraged. They all rushed towards Yunjian and Ce to surround them. 1 minute later, more than 10 boys were thrown to the ground by Yunjian and Ce. More than 10 boys howled like pigs. In 2019, law and order were very good. When the boys led a group of people to surround Yunjian and Ce, someone had already called the police. 10 minutes later, everyone was sitting in a nearby police station. Name? A female police officer held a registration book and asked the leader of the group that surrounded Yunjian and Ce. Zhang Xiaosan. The boy touched his hand that had been broken by Ce and replied dejectedly. "Ha." The boy, who was one of Zhang Xiaosan's close friends, couldn't help but laugh out loud the moment he heard his name. F***CK, what are you laughing at? Zhang Xiaosan glared at his brother with a dispirited look. 20 minutes later, the group left the police station. Before they left, Zhang Xiaosan and his gang were severely criticized by the police. Yunjian and Ce left the police station without saying a word. At this moment, Zhang Xiaosan touched his hand and brought his men to surround them. "I've never been beaten up like this in my entire life." Zhang Xiaosan brought his men and surrounded him again. This was the first thing he said. More than 10 of Zhang Xiaosan's buddies, including Zhang Xiaosan, were beaten black and blue by Yunjian and Ce. "Brother, sister, I Xiaosan have decided that you are my brothers. Zhang Xiaosan patted his chest with the hand that hadn't been broken by Ce and said loudly to Yun Jian and Ce. Yun Jian glanced at Zhang Xiaosan with her sharp eyes and didn't say anything. She didn't intend to pay attention to him. But Zhang Xiaosan's next words attracted Yun Jian's attention. Brother, sister. From now on you two are my ancestors. Needless to say, I, Zhang Xiaosan, have the best power in this area. If you need any help, just let me know. After he finished speaking, Yun Jian and Ce looked at each other and nodded at Zhang Xiaosan. In this era, Yun Jian and Ce had no power. Everything had to start from scratch. But as the former king, even if they started from scratch, they would still be invincible. At Yun Jian's request, Zhang Xiaosan quickly helped to search for information about the mysterious man. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 2640. Speaking of which, Zhang Xiaosan's influence was not small. He contacted a group of his friends from various places and actually searched the entire Zhe province. Hey, I heard a piece of news. I heard that there was an abandoned teaching building near our university. There was a man in a black robe, with only a pair of dark eyes exposed. I don't know if he's the one you're looking for. Brother, sister. If you want to go, I'll lead the way for you. Zhang Xiaosan patted his shoulder and said. Let's go. Yun Jian nodded simply. Zhang Xiaosan rushed out of the door as if he was dealing with his own business. Thank you, Xiaosan. Just as Zhang Xiaosan was about to step out of the door, Yun Jian's intimate address scared Zhang Xiaosan so much that he slipped and fell to the ground. Sister. You can call me Sansan or Zhang in the future. Can you drop the word Xiaosan? I beg you, sister. Zhang Xiaosan said with a bitter face. Yun Jian just nodded slightly and said nothing. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Yun Jian met up with Zhang Xiaosan and the others alone. Yuan Jin had some influence in this world. Ce planned to use Yuan Jin's influence to take back the forces that had been scattered by the death of Yun Jian and Ce in the future world. Needless to say, Ce really had the ability to do so. Using a small force to swallow a big force. Starting from scratch, Ce would still be the king. The ruler of the divine continent, the divine emperor. Because the search for the mysterious man could not be limited to Zhe province or country Z. It required connections, financial resources, and power. Coming here, Yun Jian and Ce did not plan to get rich in one go and find the mysterious person at once. Since they were sure that the mysterious man was here, it was only a matter of time before they found him. Yun Jian met up with Zhang Xiaosan and the others alone. Sis, you're here? Zhang Xiaosan chuckled at Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded and led the way to the abandoned school building. Why are you here? Just as Yun Jian was walking towards the abandoned school building, she heard Zhang Xiaosan shouting behind her. Since you're here, why can't I be here? The voice of a female university student came from behind. Yun Jian just turned sideways and gave him a sidelong glance. The person who came was actually one of the girls who had commented in front of the coffee shop not long ago that their university had produced a rustic girl who dressed like she was from the year 2000. This girl's name was Fang Lingli, and she was a very clever girl. Behind Fang Lingli was a group of girls. It seemed like they were here to join in the fun. Coincidentally, Fang Lingli was Zhang Xiaosan's girlfriend. At this moment, when Fang Lingli saw Yun Jian, she couldn't help but narrow her eyes. She took the lead and pointed at Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaosan pointed at Zhang Xiaosan and said to Zhang Xiaosan, "Why did you call her here? Don't you know that she's the weirdo in our university?" As Fang Lingli spoke, she grabbed Zhang Xiaosan's shirt and took 2 big steps back. However, just as Fang Lingli and the others were done talking, Yun Jian suddenly saw a figure coming from behind them. The owner of that silhouette she was. Seeing this, Yun Jian's eyes flickered. Without saying a word, she suddenly removed her black mask in front of everyone. 3 years ago, when news of the death of the top international secret agent, Slaying God, spread, everyone in the world knew about it. It had been 3 years since Slaying God's death, but her reputation had never faded. It was said that the existence of assassins and secret agents was like fireworks after her death. After being dazzling, it would fade away. However, Slaying God's death was like a reminder to people. No matter how many years had passed, her existence was enough to make people tremble in fear. She had become an eternal legend in the world of assassins and secret agents. Moreover, when Slaying God died, all the major international newspapers were filled with her looks for an entire year. When Yun Jian removed her black mask, everyone saw Yun Jian's face. With Zhang Xiaosan and Fang Lingli in the lead, everyone stared at Yun Jian. Suddenly their pupils dilated and they exclaimed, Why you? Why you? Aren't you the top international secret agent, slaying God who died 3 years ago? Chapter 2641. Slaying God, who had died in 2016 and was ranked number 1 on the International Secret Agent Assassin ranking. Although Fang Lingli and the rest were from the same school as Yun Jian, they had been discussing Yun Jian's looks in front of the cafe not too long ago. However, no one had actually seen Yun Jian's face before. This was because Yun Jian had been wearing a black mask ever since she transferred to university. However, they could vaguely tell from her facial features that Yun Jian was not ugly. That was why people said that she must be a plastic surgery freak. However, when the black mask on Yun Jian's face was removed, everyone was stunned. However, Yun Jian ignored their shock. She hung the black mask by her ear and took 2 steps forward with her long legs. She saw a woman standing behind Zhang Xiaosen, Fang Lingli and the rest. The woman was dressed in a flamboyant outfit and looked sexy and seductive. The woman was tall and slender. In 2019 she was already in her 30s. She and Yun Jian, who was not even in her 20s, looked at each other in front of Zhang Xiaosan, Fang Lingli and the rest. Fang Lingli, Zhang Xiaosan, and the rest who had recovered from the shock were secretly comforting themselves. It was probably just a coincidence that Yun Jian looked similar to a dead person. When Yun Jian and the woman in her 30s looked at each other, Zhang Xiaosan, Fang Lingli, and the rest were shocked again. Why did Yun Jian and the woman look at each other and feel like they had crossed time and space? Who's this woman? Fang Lingli glanced at the woman in her 30s and used her manicured hand to tuck her hair gently. She should be my sister's friend. Just watch quietly and don't talk nonsense. Zhang Xiaosan grabbed Fang Lingli and addressed Yun Jian as his sister. Perhaps due to Yun Jian's terrifying face, Fang Lingli and the group of female university students who were with Fang Lingli kept their mouths shut. At that moment, Zhang Xiaosan and the rest of the delinquents, Fang Lingli, and the group of female university students saw Yun Jian stop when she was about 3 meters away from the woman in her 30s. They thought that the two of them were old friends who had not seen each other for a long time and that they would extend their arms and hug each other tightly like normal teenage girls. This was something that only normal people would do. Who knew that when Yun Jian was 3 meters away from the woman, she would suddenly stop. She suddenly pulled out a fruit knife from her waist, replacing the butterfly knife that she was good at, and dashed toward the woman. Zhang Xiaosan, Fang Lingli, and the rest were shocked when they saw that. Oh my God, sister. Elder, please be careful, the blade does not have eyes, it can kill. Zhang Xiaosan was so scared that he kept shouting. How was this meeting an old friend? This was clearly a meeting between two enemies, and their eyes blazed with hatred. Fang Lingli and the others were all students. In the peaceful era of 2019 who would still use knives and guns. Zhang's as? Yun Jian was playing with her life. However, just as Yun Jian's knife was about to pierce the woman's heart, the knife flashed and a long knife was pushed out from the woman's wrist. The long knife blocked Yun Jian's knife. When the two collided, there was a series of sparks. Yun Jian's lips curled up at that moment. She said, "You're still alive." The woman on the other side also smiled and replied with a reply that shocked everyone present. "You too." This woman in her 30s was none other than Ji Yi. She was Shinji, who had died in 2004. Come. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2642. As for why Shinji was still alive in 2019. Have you ever heard of a time machine? Some people could open the door of time and space, travel to many years ago and change history. Shinji was still alive in 2019, but Shinji was already dead in the year Yun Jian was born in 2004. Did this mean that Shinji could be resurrected after his death in 2004? Of course, all of this was still unknown. Yun Jian came to Country Z in 2019 from 2004 to change the future. The future could be changed. After all, the beginning of everything was the mysterious man's return to the starting point of Lord God, which changed everything. If the mysterious man had not accidentally gone to the divine continent in 2019, Yun Jian as the witch goddess would not have been attacked, and Ce as the immortal would not have sacrificed his life to save her. The two of them would not have fallen to the earth. In general, this was the only point. It was the mysterious man who accidentally went to the divine continent and attacked Yun Jian, and Ce and Yun Jian both fell to the earth. What happened later was not much different from what Yun Jian had experienced, except for the absence of the sandalwood box, wooden fan and wooden hairpin. The only difference was that Yun Jian and Ce gave birth to Si Luo. After Si Luo grew up, Yun Jian and Si died together with the mysterious man, and only Si Luo and Yuan Jin survived. By chance, Si Luo found out that the mysterious man was reborn in the era he lived in and went to the divine continent. When the mysterious man was at large in Yun Jian's era, Si Luo, who had not yet become a mysterious man, also existed in the world. However, the mysterious man only showed a pair of dark eyes, and his whole body was covered in a black robe, so Si Luo could not kill him as early as 2004, before the mysterious man found a way to go to the divine continent. Si Luo went to the divine continent with the mysterious man in the future when the mysterious man had just become a mysterious man and found the passage to the divine continent. In general, Yun Jian had experienced 2 repetitive lives. She had no impression of the first repetitive life. Everything is complicated to say, but you just need to remember one thing. From 2004, Yun Jian and Si traveled through time and space to 2019, just to find the mysterious man and kill him so as to change the future of herself, Si, and everyone else who perished together with the mysterious man. Even if her and Si's deaths were already a foregone conclusion. However, the future could be changed. My life is in my hands and not in the hands of the heavens. Yun Jian was going to defy the heavens and take control of her own luck. Inside the cafe, Yun Jian put on the black mask again. Xinji also wore a hat. Zhang Xiaosan, Fang Lingli, and the others stood like bodyguards beside the table where Yun Jian and Xinji were staring at each other, about 10 meters away. Xinji didn't seem to know about this. She raised her eyebrows and asked Yun Jian, "So you're saying that I died in 2004? Yun Jian responded softly. Xinji raised her eyebrows and looked at Yun Jian. She said half-jokingly, "In my current world, you 006 are also a dead person. Do you know how shocked I was when I heard that you were dead? I can't believe you 006 will die one day." Xinji's words were a little harsh, but Yun Jian knew she was joking. Yun Jian pressed her lips together and asked in return, "Then it's your turn to explain why you were with the mysterious man's underling in 2004. Xinji nodded and smiled. She told Yun Jian honestly, "Because I owed him a favor. But I want to know my character. I wouldn't have hurt you in the past, would I?" Chapter 2643. You didn't harm me. You even saved my life. Yun Jian stood up and crossed her arms in front of her chest with a smile on her face. After a while, she continued to ask, "Which means you know the identity of the mysterious man? Who is he?" The corners of Xinji's lips twitched at the mention of this. That guy is very cunning. He knows that he was just an ordinary earthling before he took on his current identity. He's afraid that he'll be killed in another time and space. He didn't send anyone to protect himself as an ordinary person in another time and space. That's why he didn't expose himself at all. When Xinji said this, the twitch of his lips was tinged with anger. Yun Jian's eyes dimmed at his words. However, what Xinji said next caught Yun Jian's attention. "But I know that the guy has a weakness that outsiders don't know about." Xinji's words made Yun Jian's eyes narrow. After leaving the cafe, Zhang Xiaosan, Fang Lingli, and the others kept their mouths shut. It was as if they had found out something that should not be leaked to the outside world, as they did not publicize anything about Yun Jian. After the future Yun Jian died, all the forces under her were taken over by Xinji alone. They did not fall into the hands of outsiders. Xinji had even asked Yun Jian if she wanted to return her forces to her, but Yun Jian had declined decisively. She only asked Xinji to help find the mysterious man's whereabouts. Her purpose in coming to the future was to kill the mysterious man and nothing else. During the weekend, Yun Jian took the high-speed rail back to Longmen City from the university. There was no high-speed rail in 2004, but with Yun Jian's understanding, she quickly learned how to buy tickets with her smartphone. The Longmen City of 2004 and 2019 had undergone drastic changes. Whether it was the streets, the alleys, the city's scale, or the people's living conditions, everything had changed drastically. Based on Longmen City's economic situation in 2019, every household could afford a car now. Yun Jian tightened her black mask and arrived at a familiar yet strange home, Qin Yiru's home. Yun Jian and Si had died in the battle, but Qin Yiru, Gujun Jian, and the others were still alive. When he arrived at the door, he saw Qin Yiru, who was already in her 50s or 60s, bending over to sweep the fallen leaves on the ground. Because of her old age, Qin Yiru had to use her other hand to support her waist when she bent down. His back looked lonely and desolate. Yun Jian clenched her fists. She had no intention of going forward to acknowledge him. At this moment, A passerby suddenly threw a bunch of bananas into Chinyiru's house. The bunch of bananas hit Chinyiru hard. Bah! The murderer's mother. A man who passed by suddenly spat at Chinyiru in the yard. The woman beside the man tugged at the passerby and said fearfully, "That's slaying God's mother after all. What if, slaying God is already dead? Ah! How dare a woman flaunt her power to this extent? There's nothing left if she's dead. It's good enough that I didn't King rush in and beat slaying God's mother up. Look at slaying God's mother. Her leg isn't working. Wasn't it crippled by someone earlier? Without slaying God's support, she's nothing." The man spat and pulled the woman beside him, who was his girlfriend, away. They had just turned into an empty alley. The man was holding the woman's hand as they walked forward happily. Suddenly, a slender girl wearing a black mask appeared in front of them. F***CK. Who are you? What the hell are you doing? The man was startled and cursed. After that, the man pulled the woman, wanting to go around the girl in front of them and leave. However, just as the man was about to go around the girl suddenly took off her black mask, revealing her true face. Just as the man and woman were so frightened that their faces turned pale, they saw the young girl turn her head to look at them. But out of nowhere, she uttered the last sentence the man and woman heard in their lives. "Weren't you talking about me so enthusiastically just now? What? Can't you guess who I am after seeing my face?" Chapter 2644. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, Part 1, Part 2, Page 1/1. Slaying God. The man did not even have time to recover from his shock. He gasped for air as he exclaimed. His rosy cheeks were now replaced by paleness and horror. Isn't slaying God dead? Didn't the media release slaying God's face after her death? The woman was pale with fright as well. She gripped the man's hand so hard that she could break his skin. However, when she recalled what they had done earlier, tap, tap, it was a quiet and deserted alley surrounded by residences. Since it was 1 or 2 in the afternoon, the residents had either gone out to have fun or were taking a nap at home. At this time, the originally quiet alley was the most deserted. Yunjian's long white shoes stepped lightly on the ground. She looked like a grim reaper who had just opened the gates of hell and stepped over thousands of corpses. Her sharp eyes glanced sideways at the man and woman. You. I'm telling you, this is a lawful society. If you dare do anything to me, if you dare kill me, there will be evidence left at the crime scene. This is a high-tech society. If you kill me, they'll definitely find out that you're the murderer. If you're caught, you'll be sent to jail. Lay down your knife and become a Buddha. I advise you to be kind. The man's voice was trembling as he spoke. His grip on his girlfriend's hand loosened unknowingly. Just as Yunjian was about to reach him, the man grabbed his girlfriend and hugged her tightly, trying to pull her to him. However, Yunjian handed him a piece of white paper and a black pen. Write down all the people and addresses you know who bullied Chinyiru's family and I'll let you go. Yunjian's words made the man heave a huge sigh of relief. He quickly grabbed the black pen from Yunjian's hand and wrote down all the names and addresses he knew on the white paper. Everything I know is up there. Let's go. The man shoved the black pen and white paper back into Yunjian's hands. He pushed his girlfriend and staggered 2 steps forward. He almost lost his balance and stumbled. Hold on. Yunjian said slowly and gloomily. From the sound of her voice, one could tell that there was not a single trace of expression on her face. The man and his girlfriend's hearts trembled slightly. Just as the man turned around and was about to ask if Yunjian was going to go back on her word, he suddenly heard a cold and indifferent voice behind him. He had heard the last words in this world. You two know that I'm still alive in this world. Do you really think you can leave safely? In Province Huzhou City. In a certain dance studio. A group of young girls dressed in bright and beautiful clothes were following their instructor in front of a large mirror, swaying their bodies to the music and dancing seductively. Unlike these young girls who were dressed in bright and beautiful clothes, there were 2 or 3 hourly workers who were wearing overalls and yellowish white shoes. They were bent over the large floor of the dance studio, cleaning and mopping the floor. They were immersed in their work. These 2 or 3 hourly workers were hired by the boss to clean the dance studio every day. Among them, a girl with a slender figure and a perfect body, but her appearance was slightly ordinary. Her eyes flashed sharply. This ordinary-looking girl was none other than Yunjian, who was in disguise. At this time Yun Jian raised her eyes and looked at the girl who was about 15 or 16 years old, who was also beautiful but doing the work of the lowest class. Looking closely, the girl Yun Jian was looking at was 80% similar to Yun Jian's appearance. This young girl was none other than her own daughter, Si Yuan, who had grown up. Yun Jian's eyes darkened slightly. Suddenly, she heard the latest news broadcast from a color TV in front of the dance studio. It's reported that there have been more than a dozen headless murders in Zhe Province's Longmen City. However, the murderer knows how to erase the evidence at the scene, so the police can't start the investigation. The police are still investigating. Please follow us. We'll update you as soon as there's more news. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 2645. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, Part 1, Part 2, page 1/1. After the news report came out, the other girl who was working part-time in the dance studio with Yun Jian and Si Yuan wiped the sweat on her forehead and could not help grumbling to Si Yuan, who was not far away. Headless murder case. Si Yuan, I heard that your hometown is in Zhe Province's Longmen City, right? Hearing this, Si Yuan's hand paused. A trace of imperceptible desolation appeared on her young but beautiful face. Si Yuan nodded gently at the part-time worker who was with her and continued to do her work without saying anything. This was the fate of Si Yuan and Si Yuan after they grew up after Yun Jian and Si Yi's death. Yun Jian tightened her grip on the mop, but she did not say anything. Yun Jian did not go forward to acknowledge Si Yuan as her daughter, as if something was squeezing her heart. Even if she was penniless when she first came to the future world, it was easy for Yun Jian to get rich in an instant with her ability. She also had the ability to let Si Yuan live a life of luxury immediately, but she did not plan to do so. She only planned to stay by Si Yuan's side and protect her silently before she found the mysterious man. Si Yuan was captured by the mysterious man. Yun Jian and Si Yi in the future world were gone. In addition, Yun Jian and Si Yi were not the only ones who perished together with the mysterious man back then. To Si Yuan was her only living relative other than Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian. Now, as Si Yuan's biological brother and her pillar of support, Si Yuan had left for a place where everything had yet to begin in order to change his fate. He had not returned since he left. To Si Yuan, she did not have a trustworthy friend by her side now. She had to work outside the province to make a living, which resulted in her reticent personality. There was a moment of silence after that. I'm so tired. My mom cooked supper for me. I can go home for supper tonight. Not long after, the group of beautifully dressed young girls who were practicing in front of the mirror in the dance studio walked out. One of them stretched lazily and spoke with a relaxed expression. The girls who were dressed up were a stark contrast to Yun Jian, Si Yuan, and another worker who were sweeping the floor. The girls who were having lessons left the dance studio one after another. This meant that Yun Jian and the rest had to mop the floor of the dance studio again. Si Yuan, let's go together. At this time, a well-dressed girl came out of the dance studio and walked in front of Si Yuan. She tilted her head at Si Yuan. The girl's name was Yuan Tianqi. She came from a rich family. Yuan Tianqi was Si Yuan's friend. She and her long legs. She was wearing a short leather shorts that just short of her butt. Si Yuan's looks. Was the girl is she? I haven't finished mopping the floor here. You can go first. Si Yuan looked like she wanted to go with Yuan Tianqi, but she paused and held the mop in her hand, refusing. I'll help you clean here. Go. Yun Jian took the mop from Si Yuan's hand and said, How can I? It's tiring for you to help me mop. Si Yuan was stunned and quickly said, Go play. Remember to go home early. Yun Jian did not say anything else. She just reminded her. The words go home early suddenly made Si Yuan want to cry. She wiped away her tears. What's wrong? Yun Jian saw Si Yuan wiping her tears and frowned slightly. Si Yuan saw this and quickly waved her hand at Yun Jian. Nothing. I just feel that you look like someone I know. Very similar. She really looks like my dear mother. The mother I want to see again. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 2646. 2, page 1/1. Aya, if she's willing to do it, just let her do it for you. Aside from Yun Jian and Si Yuan, the other hourly worker saw this scene. She walked over and stuffed the mop in Si Yuan's hand into Yun Jian's hand. As the girl who worked part-time in the dance studio like Yun Jian and Si Yuan spoke, She shoved the mop she was holding into Yun Jian's hand as well. Hey, since you're helping Si Yuan, then help me too. Help me mop the floor. Don't worry, I'll take good care of Si Yuan. The girl who worked part-time in the dance studio was smart. She knew that Yun Jian was concerned about Si Yuan, so she used the latter as an excuse. Yun Jian would definitely agree to it. Yun Jian blinked. Sure enough, when she heard this hourly worker say that she would help take care of Si Yuan, she tacitly agreed. No, I can't let her do the work of 3 people by herself. You guys go play. I'll stay and mop the floor. For some reason, Si Yuan didn't want to leave. She snatched the mop back from Yun Jian's hand and insisted on going with Yun Jian. Okay, I really don't have a choice. Tianqi, let's go together? The other hourly worker said and put on a helpless expression. Then she climbed onto Yuan Tianqi's arm. Yuan Tianqi froze, but he still nodded. This hourly worker girl didn't come from a good family. Her family didn't have money to support her, so she came out to work when she was 15 or 16 years old. The hourly worker girl's name was Gan Suya. Yuan Tianqi and Gan Suya left. Yun Jian's hand holding the mop slightly paused. She smiled from the bottom of her heart and looked at Si Yuan. Why didn't you leave? Because I can't let you be alone, Si Yuan said and took the mop from Yun Jian's hand and started mopping the floor again. After saying that, she seemed to be more cheerful in front of Yun Jian. Suddenly she grinned at Yun Jian. Her smile was so beautiful that it was amazing. Also, I think you look like someone. That person is my mother. As she spoke, her voice became softer and softer. In the evening, Yun Jian personally sent Si Yuan to her residence and was about to leave. There was no trace of the mysterious person near the university. Yun Jian had left the university and was now temporarily living in Huzhou City of An Province. Just as Yun Jian was about to leave, Si Yuan suddenly asked her to stay. The girl who lives with me just moved out today. Do you want to move in with me? We can play games together, sleep and count the stars. Before Si Yuan could finish, Yun Jian agreed. Okay. In the blink of an eye, it was the end. At the end of the month, after settling her salary, Si Yuan planned to give herself a day off. Coincidentally, Yuan Tianqi and Gan Suya had asked her out to play together. Si Yuan was looking forward to it very much. Si Yuan also invited Yun Jian to go with her, but Yun Jian refused. You must be home before 7 o'clock in the evening, Yun Jian said. In the future, Si Yuan did not learn martial arts from Yun Jian because she had been well protected by her family. Okay. I find that you really look like my mother. Si Yuan smiled excitedly at Yun Jian. Then she waved to Yun Jian and left the rented house to go out to play. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and smiled. Soon after Si Yuan went out, she left with her. In Huzhou City of An Province, in the home of the chairman of the most famous and powerful Tianma group in the city. The Pegasus Group had opened a Pegasus nightclub in private, and the nightclub did some unscrupulous business. At this moment in the office of the Tianma Group, a 19-year-old girl was stepping on the shoulder of the chairman of the Tianma Group, Ma Jianhang. She forced the chairman of the Tianma Group, Ma Jianhang, to kneel down in front of her and listen to her trembling. And this girl was none other than Yun Jian. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 2647. Upon closer inspection, the director of Tianma Group, Ma Jianhang, was shaking all over with sweat beading on his forehead as he knelt before Yun Jian with his head lowered. Yun Jian wore a black mask that covered her entire face. She stepped on the shoulder of Ma Jianhang, the richest and most powerful magnate in Huzhou City, like she was doing something that could not be more ordinary. Following the recent murders in Longmen City, a young girl with the codename Soul Slayer had appeared in the underworld. It was said that the girl looked to be in her teens and wore a black mask daily. Her identity was unknown and she was decisive in her killings, killing anyone she targeted. Ma Jianhang was unaware of Yun Jian's identity. He only knew that Yun Jian came to him because she was interested in his wealth. Whatever you've taken a fancy to from my company, please take it away. Please let me go. Please let me go. Ma Jianhang was pale with fright. He did not even know which corner Yun Jian had snuck into his office from. Once Yun Jian appeared, she threw him to the ground. There was a blade attached to the heel of her shoe that was stepping on his shoulder. The blade was pressed tightly against his neck. 50 million yuan, not a cent less. Transfer it to this card. Yun Jian tossed a bank card in front of Ma Jianhang. Ma Jianhang obediently made a phone call and asked someone to transfer the money to the bank card number. Soon Yun Jian received 50 million yuan in her account. Once the money was in her hands, Yun Jian stomped on the bank card on the ground. The card bounced up and landed in Yun Jian's palm. Holding the card, she ground the blade under her foot into the ground and kept it without a trace. At the same time in Pegasus nightclub. Siyuan, it's true. You have to believe me. It's Chanchi who recommended it, don't you believe me? I tried it 2 days ago. I can earn at least 200 to 300 yuan a night just by pouring drinks for people in the bar. It could even be up to 1,000 yuan. Why don't you come and work with me? This way we won't have to work so hard to mop the floor. Gan Suya dragged Siyuan to the Pegasus nightclub. Really? Siyuan was indeed moved. She was just a little girl who had not experienced anything. She didn't even know what a place like a bar was. Really? Moreover, as long as you accompany them to drink, you'll get a tip. Why don't you try coming here to work for a day? I promise you won't go back to mop that dirty floor again. Gan Suya nodded her head like a rattledrum. She dragged Siyuan into the bar. On the other side, after Yun Jian returned home, she did not see Siyuan. It was already 7:30 in the evening. She told her to go home at 7, but she was still not back at this time. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. At this time, Siyuan was dragged by Gan Suya to change into the professional attire of the bar. It was a mini skirt, similar to what the receptionist of a bar would wear. This skirt, isn't it too short? Siyuan tugged at the hem of her short skirt, but it couldn't cover her beautiful white thighs. Wow. Siyuan, your legs are too beautiful. The big bosses will definitely like your legs very much. At this time, Yuan Tianqi led a woman who was dressed very maturely into the changing room. When Yuan Tianqi saw Siyuan, she exclaimed, her eyes shining. As he spoke, Yuan Tianqi even brought the maturely dressed woman behind him in front of Siyuan, and then introduced her. Oh right, let me introduce you. This is the person in charge of the bar. Everyone calls her Sister Hong. Siyuan, once you enter this industry, you'll really be drunk and won't want to be a floor sweeper for the rest of your life. Chapter 2648. As Yuan Tianqi spoke, he reached out and touched Siyuan's thigh that was exposed outside the bar's business attire. He was joking with Siyuan like they were best friends. Siyuan only gave Yuan Tianqi a small, symbolic smile, but her face was lifeless. Siyuan had never come into contact with this before, but her innate perception gave her a bad premonition. Quick, greet Sister Hong. Yuan Tianqi said and nudged Siyuan with his elbow, hinting at Siyuan. Thinking that greeting should be basic etiquette, Siyuan said to Sister Hong, hello, Sister Hong. Good. Good sister, you should only be 15 or 16 years old, right? You're so beautiful. Actually, Sister Hong is only a few years older than you. When I was your age, I also came out to make a living by myself. In the future, treat this place as your home. Sister Hong will protect you. Dressed in a red cheongsam, Sister Hong walked towards Siyuan leisurely. She was wearing a smoky makeup and high heels that were more than 10 centimeters tall. When she walked in front of Siyuan, Sister Hong reached out and grabbed Siyuan's arm, making Siyuan's heart feel warm. However, Siyuan still took 2 steps back without a trace. Whether it was Yuan Tianqi, Gan Suya or Sister Hong, they all gave Siyuan a very warm feeling. But why did she still feel that being with the people in front of her wasn't as comfortable as being with Yun Jian? Tick-tock, tick-tock. Siyuan was silent for 2 minutes. Suddenly, she heard the crisp sound of the clock turning. She raised her head and looked at the clock hanging on the wall in front of the changing room. The time on the clock was a little past 7:30. It's already 7:30? I should go home. Siyuan looked at the clock, turned around and wanted to go into the changing room to take off her clothes and go home. What's the rush? Siyuan, no one is waiting for you to go home anyway. It's only 7 o'clock. It's still early. Let's play for a while before going back. Let Sister Hong take you to get used to your new job. Yuan Tianqi saw this and reached out to grab Siyuan. He even gave Gan Suya a sidelong glance. Seeing this, Gan Suya smiled and walked over to grab Siyuan, urging her to stay. That's right, play for a while before going back. We'll send you home later. Yuan Tianqi and Gan Suya tried their best to persuade her to stay. In addition, Sister Hong said that this was a good job. If Siyuan didn't stay tonight to apply for the job, she wouldn't have another chance. There were many people lining up to get this easy and lucrative job, so Siyuan agreed to stay. Can you lend me your phone? I want to make a call. And she is still waiting for me at home. She said that I have to be home by 7 o'clock. Siyuan spoke again. And she was Yun Jian's fake name. Si Yuan, Yuan Tianqi and Gan Suya all referred to Yun Jian as Nqi. Ah, Nqi isn't your parents. Do you think you'll go home when she tells you to? We don't have our phones with us. Alright, let's go. I'll explain it to her when I go back tonight. Yuan Tianqi pushed Si Yuan and pulled her out of the changing room with a half-hearted refusal. Standing in the empty rented apartment, Yun Jian's face gradually darkened. 7:35. Si Yuan had always been an obedient child. It had been so long since the scheduled time and she still hadn't returned home. Yun Jian stood up from the sofa and walked to the door. She opened the door and left the rented apartment. The future world had undergone earth-shaking changes because of the death of the future Yun Jian and Si. In 2004, Yun Jian only needed to make a phone call to investigate a person's whereabouts. But in 2019, without power, it wasn't so easy for her to investigate a person. Of course, everything that wasn't easy, even if she had to start from scratch and start all over again in Yun Jian's hands, it would become a piece of cake. After being threatened by Yun Jian, the chairman of the Tianma Group, Ma Jianhang, couldn't recover from the shock for a long time. At this time, Ma Jianhang was hugging a naked woman with ample breasts and buttocks. Because they were tired after hard work, they both laid on the bed and prepared to go to sleep early. It was pitch black all around. Just as Ma Jianhang heaved a sigh of relief and was about to fall asleep, a ghost-like figure suddenly appeared on the balcony outside the curtains. Who's there? Ma Jianhang inadvertently caught a glimpse of this figure and was so scared that his lips and teeth turned white. Just as Ma Jianhang was so scared that all his muscles tensed up, a female voice that scared Ma Jianhang so much during the day that he almost peed his pants and would never forget until his death suddenly sounded from the balcony outside the curtains. Old thing, I'll give you 1 minute to get dressed and get out here. Chapter 2649. Ma Jianhang would remember this voice for the rest of his life. That woman lifted her foot, and a blade suddenly flew out of her heel. The scene of her holding it against his neck was like a decisive killer. Ma Jianhang was so scared that he jumped out of bed. He even forgot to pretend to be a gentleman in front of his mistress and quickly put on his clothes. As he ran, he crawled to open the curtains and the balcony door. Like a big wolf dog that had lost its arrogance, he bent down and looked at Yun Jian, obeying her orders. Pegasus nightclub. At this moment, Si Yuan, who was wearing a bar attire, was pulled to the door of a large private room. Gan Suya had also changed into a bar attire at some point. Sister Hong and Yuan Tianqi stood next to Si Yuan and Gan Suya. Sister Hong was constantly reminding Si Yuan, "Good sister, you've just arrived. Learn more from Suya. Today all the people in the room are big bosses. Their net worth is in the hundreds of millions. Don't make them unhappy." Yesterday the new girl in our bar, Xiaolan, received a tip of 3,000 yuan from the big bosses just by drinking with them. You two learn to be smarter. Sister Hong twisted her waist and warned them. As she spoke, Sister Hong glanced at Si Yuan and asked, "Good sister, have you been in love before?" As soon as she asked this, Sister Hong saw a trace of desolation flash through Si Yuan's eyes. And, after softly replying to Sister Hong, Si Yuan didn't say anything else. Si Yuan thought of Zhou Yiran, who had protected her since she was young. But he had already protected her. Holding back the tears that were about to fall, Si Yuan clenched her fists and pretended to be calm. Okay, quickly go in." A different color flashed through Sister Hong's eyes. In the next second she urged her. Si Yuan turned her head and secretly wiped her tears. She pushed the door open and entered the private room with a tray of wine. Sister Hong smiled as she watched Si Yuan and Gan Suya enter the private room. After the door closed, Sister Hong's smile instantly dimmed. This one already has a boyfriend. She's definitely not a virgin. Sister Hong said to Yuan Tianqi, who was standing on the side. Then if he doesn't comply later, we can directly inject him? Yuan Tianqi raised an eyebrow. And take care of this matter well. I'll give you a reward later. Hong Jia nodded towards Yuan Tianqi. She crossed her arms and looked through the door of the large private room to observe the situation inside. As soon as Si Yuan walked into the big box, her ears were ringing from the deafening noise in the box. She subconsciously took a big step back. Follow me later and don't run around. Obviously it was not Gan Suya's first time here. She moved closer to Si Yuan and whispered to her. After that, Gan Suya smiled and walked towards the group of big bosses in front of her with a tray of wine. At first, Si Yuan and Gan Suya just stood aside and poured wine. Si Yuan also naively thought that this was just a job to pour wine. But as the atmosphere became more and more lively, the big bosses sat in the private room and held up their microphones to sing loudly at the screen. As they sang, one of the big bosses, who was big and burly, reached out his hand to touch Si Yuan's thigh. He was so big that he looked like he was 5 months pregnant. Perhaps she had inherited Yun Jian and Si Yi's excellent genes, but Si Yuan's innate reaction speed was extremely fast. She quickly dodged the second the big boss's hand was about to touch her thigh. This move instantly attracted the big boss's dissatisfaction. "Hong?" The big boss immediately shouted. He opened his mouth and wanted to call Hong Jie, who was outside the private room, to come in. Before the word Hong could be heard, Wuxia took the opportunity to replace Si Yuan. She turned around, endured the disgust in her heart, and sat in the big boss's seat. Wuxia took a sliced banana from the table in the private room and stuffed it into the big boss's mouth. Then she pulled her red lips. "Boss Li, she is a newcomer. You are a generous person, so don't lower yourself to her level." When Wuxia was sweeping the floor in the dance studio, she was quite scheming. She knew how to take advantage of Yun Jian's kindness to Si Yuan to sweep the mop for Yun Jian. But at this moment, Wuxia's action saved Si Yuan again. It should be known that if you angered this group of big bosses, it would not be over just by quitting this job. In the future you would have to bear the consequences in Hezhou City. So you are a newcomer. I was wondering why you were so insensible. The bald man in his 40s or 50s, who was called Boss Li, grabbed Wuxia's chest and stared straight at Si Yuan. "White Horse Nightclub, in the name of a bar. Actually, the waitresses who entered here could be taken away as long as you could pay the price. They clearly marked the price for a night." Chapter 2650. Si Yuan was stunned by the scene in front of her. No matter how insensible she was, Si Yuan should know what was going on. "I'm going to the toilet." Si Yuan immediately thought of a way to escape. She gave everyone a fake smile, but in her heart she was already thinking of how to escape. Fortunately, no one stopped her from going to the toilet. After Si Yuan walked out of the private room, she ran to the toilet as fast as she could. At this time, Sister Hong walked out from the corner. She looked in the direction Si Yuan left and said to the thugs standing beside her, "Follow her." Yes. The group of thugs accepted the order and chased after Si Yuan. Sister Hong dodged and entered the private room of the bar. She swayed her butt and came to Boss Li. She replaced Wuxia and sat on Boss Li's lap. She said to Boss Li with a seductive look, "How is it? Boss Li, are you satisfied with that girl just now?" Boss Li heard Sister Hong's words and revealed a wretched smile. "Satisfied. Extremely satisfied. If she doesn't listen later, I'll inject her with a bucket of that thing. Once that thing is injected into her body, she won't be able to control it. In the future, she will definitely be the most lascivious woman in my bar." Sister Hong smiled and drew a few circles on Boss Li's chest. "Judging from her appearance, she must be the prettiest bar-room princess in your restaurant." Boss Li could almost imagine that scene. Meanwhile, Si Yuan had already reached the toilet. She looked around the toilet and didn't find a way to escape. Helplessly, she stayed in the toilet for a long time before peeping around. Seeing that there was no one around, she ran frantically to the bar's entrance. However, just as she ran 2 steps, she was attacked by a few men from the side. Si Yuan had practiced with Zhou Yiran before. She dodged twice, but she was soon at a disadvantage. She was caught. Si Yuan didn't have any physical training because Yun Jian and Si Yi spoiled her too much. Coupled with Zhou Yiran's care, Si Yuan had lived a very good life since she was young. "Let go. Let go of me. It's illegal to catch people like this." Si Yuan struggled and was caught in the private room. Inside the private room, Sister Hong looked at Si Yuan with her legs crossed. Seeing that Si Yuan was still frantically struggling, she stepped forward in her red high heels and slapped Si Yuan a few times. "You still want to escape after entering my Pegasus nightclub?" Sister Hong slapped Si Yuan's face, leaving a few red palm prints before stopping. Yes. Yuan Tianqi hurriedly nodded. "Hold her down and inject her." Sister Hong no longer pretended and immediately revealed her ugliest face. Immediately, someone walked towards Si Yuan with a large syringe. Wuxia was so scared that she shrank to the side and trembled. The few big bosses looked at him with a meaningful look. Girls who did not have parents by their side were usually unwilling to come out after being tricked into such places. That's right. Other than accidentally ingesting drugs, they could also be forcibly injected into the body. It was just like the syringe the doctor gave you when you were getting an injection in the hospital. The only difference was that this syringe contained drugs. Once injected with drugs, the person's life would be over. If Si Yuan was injected with drugs, she would definitely be addicted to the taste of drugs. At this time, not to mention having sex with someone casually in exchange for drugs, even if she had to break her hands and feet, when the drug addiction came up, it was possible for her to do it. Forced injection of drugs. They only dared to do this because Si Yuan was an orphan. But the people around them only watched and remained silent. Some were even gloating. The big bosses were eager to make a move. They even began to discuss how they would share Si Yuan's delicacy later. Just as Sister Hong's subordinate was about to inject the drugs into Si Yuan's arm with the syringe, the door of the private room was violently smashed open. The person who was smashed into the room was a nightclub waiter. What's going on? Sister Hong's eyes moved. Just as Sister Hong's eyes flickered, a tall and slender figure stepped into the room. The moment they saw Yun Jian, Gan Suya and Yuan Tianqi almost cried out in surprise. Sister Hong even muttered, "Where did this ugly girl come from? Hurry up and chase her out." Just as she said that, Yun Jian had already made her way to Sister Hong's thug who was about to inject Si Yuan with a syringe in his hand. "Quick! Hurry up and catch her!" Sister Hong shouted when she saw this. But just as Sister Hong finished speaking, Yun Jian suddenly flipped her hands. 10 razor blades appeared between her fingers. She didn't even look at the razor blades in her hand. The razor blades flew out and directly slashed the necks of Sister Hong's subordinates in front of everyone present. In the next second, the 10 subordinates stopped breathing and fell to the ground one after another. She killed someone. Sister Hong was thoroughly frightened. She frantically retreated backwards, together with Yuan Tianqi and the other bosses. They all retreated to a corner of the room where they couldn't retreat any further. You, who exactly are you? Someone come. She killed someone. She killed someone. Just as Sister Hong was screaming in fear, Yun Jian's lips curved into a red arc. In the next second, she tore off her mask in front of everyone, revealing her original face. Exquisite and beautiful, it was a stunning face that was 80% similar to Si Yuan's. But what frightened everyone and made them tremble was not Yun Jian's beautiful face, but Yun Jian took light steps and stood in front of everyone who was huddled in the corners of the private room. Just as Si Yuan's face was covered in tears and everyone's faces were pale from fright, she suddenly spoke. "Congratulations, you're about to become the 17th headless murder victim of Slaying God's Return." Chapter 2651. The 17th victim of the Headless Murder Case. The Headless Murder Case. The eerie voice that came out of Yun Jian's mouth made everyone's eyes widen. Especially when Yun Jian killed 10 living people with a blade in a single move, it was eerie and cruel. Sister Hong, Yuan Tianqi, and the few big bosses who were sitting in the room and waiting with wretched expressions for Si Yuan to be injected with drugs and let them do whatever they wanted were all curled up in the corners of the room. They looked like they were dying to hide in the corner of the room so that they could escape. Headless murder case. Who are you? Yuan Tianqi's eyes bulged like a dead fish's as she glared at Yun Jian, her face pale. 2019 was the era of internet technology. In this day and age, even the slightest thing that happened could be transmitted to the internet and become popular overnight. In short, even a small matter could spread across the globe. The dozens of headless murder cases in Longmen City that even the police with modern technology could not investigate had long spread across the country, arousing suspicions among the netizens. Right now, the murderer of the headless murder case was standing in front of everyone, killing 10 of Sister Hong's subordinates in one move. Everyone present was indescribably shocked. What was more shocking was that it was not slaying God. Unlike Sister Hong, Yuan Tianqi, and the rest, one of the bosses finally reacted and exclaimed in shock. Could it be the top international secret agent who was reported dead 3 years ago, slaying God? After the boss exclaimed, another boss who was huddled in the corner reacted immediately and was scared out of his wits. Who was slaying God? Slaying God had been popular in the assassin secret agent world for decades. Her name alone was enough to scare people out of their wits. She was already dead and was once the pinnacle of existence in the world, a king that no one could reach. She had suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Those who weren't present at the scene would never be able to understand this kind of shock. We didn't see anything. We didn't see anything. We have no grudge against you. Please be magnanimous and show mercy. We can give you anything you want. Please let us go. In the private room, the most senior and most powerful boss among the group of big bosses suddenly crawled to Yun Jian from the corner of the private room like an animal and knelt down in front of Yun Jian. This boss was the one who wanted to take advantage of Si Yuan when she first entered the room. Originally it was as glorious as it could be, but now it was as pathetic as it could be. Yes, we have no enmity with you. Sister Hong pulled out a smile that was uglier than a crying face. Just as she was about to speak to Yun Jian, Mom? A trembling voice that was filled with disbelief and wild joy suddenly rang out. At this moment, everyone turned to look at the person who had spoken. However, Si Yuan threw herself into Yun Jian's arms and cried, "Mom! I miss your mother so much." Slaying God, Mommy? Then Si Yuan is? However, Slaying God looked like she was only 19 years old. What was going on? Just as Yun Jian gently placed her head on Si Yuan's head and gave it a gentle rub, she lifted her foot slightly and stepped on the head of the boss who had just pounced on her and begged for mercy. In almost a second, she stepped on the boss's head and kicked it to the right. With a kacha sound, the boss was directly sent to hell by the strange force of the kick before he could react. To Yun Jian, this scene was as skillful as cooking, but to the crowd, it struck fear into their hearts. At the same time, Yun Jian caressed Si Yuan's head and curled her lips into a faint smile that sent everyone into the prison of death. Next, whose turn is it? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.